Chapter 1078. Don't even think about it. Sandalwood, Fairy shouted. She waved her hand and a few elixirs flew out. The elixirs glowed and turned into weapons that attacked the burly man from the G family. At the same time, Kong Xian also attacked the burly man from the G family. The three of them engaged in a fierce battle. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming was brave and invincible. He stepped on the void and punched with earth-shattering force. The void continued to explode as Wu Qinkong was forced to retreat. He was at a complete disadvantage. Finally, he let out a long roar and used bloodline fusion to turn into a battle sword. The sword chi whistled as he fought Lu Ming. To be honest, Wu Qinkong's battle strength was very strong. He was much stronger than Sanguinarum. No wonder he was called one of the strongest experts after the 5 magnates. He had the right to be arrogant. However, his cultivation was still at LV1 spiritual god. Lu Ming was never afraid of anyone at the same level. Clang! Clang! After a few consecutive punches, the battle sword was sent flying and vibrating in the air. Damn it, who are you? Wu Qinkong roared in disbelief. He could not believe that someone who appeared out of nowhere had such terrifying battle strength. Not far away, Kong Xian and the others were also shocked. Wu Qinkong was completely suppressed. It was too shocking. Who else could do this except for the 5 magnates? Rumble. At this moment, a terrifying explosion came from afar. A ray of blood light flew over at high speed. Swoosh! A burly figure appeared in the air. His eyes were like lightning. When he saw Lu Ming, his killing intent was even more shocking. Lu Shaoqing Dai. With a roar, the figure punched out. The blood-red fist radiance pierced through the void and blasted toward Lu Ming. Xue Feng. Lu Ming frowned. This figure was Cold Blood Hall's #1 genius of the previous generation, Xue Feng. He did not expect Xue Feng to be here. Lu Ming punched back and collided with Xue Feng's fist radiance. His body trembled and he was forced to retreat. Xue Feng was very strong. With a level 7 divine bloodline and an LV4 spiritual god cultivation, his battle strength was terrifying. Xue Feng stepped forward with a violent aura. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Lu Ming. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian were dumbfounded. Lu Shaoqing? Just now, Xue Feng had called Lu Ming Lu Shaoqing. This dark-skinned young man was actually Lu Shaoqing? Sandalwood Fairy and her companion exchanged a blow with the G clan's burly man and retreated far away. They did not continue fighting. Xue Feng's arrival made the situation even more complicated. "Brother Lu, it's you?" Sandalwood Fairy said. "Fairy, how have you been?" Lu Ming smiled. Facing Xue Feng, he remained calm. "It's really you." Kong Xian was also shocked. At that moment, Wu Qinkong retreated far away and observed from afar. "This brat offended Xue Feng. He's courting death." Wu Qinkong sneered. "Kill." Xue Feng roared, stepped forward and punched out. The space shattered under the blood-red fist. It was extremely terrifying. "Do you think I'm afraid of you?" The 3rd bloodline appeared, and a trace of power entered Lu Ming's body. Instantly, a terrifying killing intent emanated from Lu Ming's body, and his hair turned blood-red. Then, the 3rd bloodline turned into a sword, which Lu Ming held in his hand and slashed out. Puff! The blood-red sword light flashed and split Xue Feng's fist in half. Is that his bloodline? Strange, why is there no chakra? Sandalwood Fairy and the others were shocked. First, they were shocked that Lu Ming had finally used his bloodline power. His combat strength had indeed increased, and he had not used his full strength before. Second, they were shocked that Lu Ming's bloodline did not have chakra. This was unheard of. Damn it, this guy probably doesn't have a life talisman. I must find a way to kill him. When he fights Xue Feng, I'll wait for an opportunity to strike. Wu Qingkong's mind kept spinning. Xue Feng was also shocked when he saw Lu Ming's sword break his fist. The true essence in his body circulated wildly, and his aura became even more violent. Divine blood, leopard fist. Xue Feng's fists were like blood jade, and he constantly punched out. Fist radiance flew out, and in the process, it turned into a blood leopard and pounced on Lu Ming. This was a divine level martial skill, and it was extremely powerful. 5 slaughter styles. Lu Ming circulated the 5 slaughter styles, and the blood-red battle sword buzzed. Sword radiance shot out and scattered the blood leopards one after another. Slaughter mentality. Xue Feng was shocked, and at the same time he was even more determined to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming's talent was too shocking. He was only at the first level of spirit god, but he could already fight with him. Bloodline appeared above his head, and in the next moment he turned into a blood leopard, roaring and pouncing on Lu Ming. Lu Ming was fearless. He held his battle sword and fought with Xue Feng. Lu Ming's combat strength was unparalleled, and he was invincible among those at the same level. However, Xue Feng's cultivation was 3 levels higher than Lu Ming's. Moreover, he had also comprehended a divine level martial skill, and his bloodline fusion was even more powerful. Lu Ming and Xue Feng exchanged dozens of moves and gradually fell into a disadvantageous position. The difference between our cultivation is too great. If I use the 9 Dragons bloodline or the suppressing Hell Steel bloodline and the 3rd bloodline, I might be able to fight with him. Lu Ming's mind raced. However, this result was already enough to shock everyone present to the extreme. I didn't expect brother Lu's combat strength to be so strong. This is too shocking. Kong Xan was tongue-tied, and after a while he said this. He was also at the first level of spirit god, but he realized that if he fought with Lu Ming now, he would be easily killed. On the other side, the battle sword that Wu Qingkong had transformed into was also trembling in fear. If Lu Ming had used this kind of combat strength, he would not have been able to resist at all. He was too strong. That's right. Even the 5 great authorities might not be as strong as him. Sandalwood Fairy sighed. Seal. In the middle of the battle, Lu Ming used the 9 seals of the God Gate, and a light gate was formed. It shone brightly and suppressed Xue Feng. For a moment, Xue Feng was actually frozen. Kill. Lu Ming took a step forward and slashed at Xue Feng's head with his sword. Roar. Xue Feng roared, and a bloody light burst out. With a bang, the light gate was shattered at the critical moment. Xue Feng continued to retreat, but he was still 1 step too late, and a piece of his scalp was cut off. Then Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked Xue Feng's stomach, sending him flying. What a pity! Lu Ming lamented in his heart. His cultivation was still not strong enough, and the gate of the seal was broken by Xue Feng's violent True Yuan. If Lu Ming's cultivation was stronger, or if he had cultivated 2 gates of the seal, it would not be so easy for Xue Feng to break it. The gate of the seal was not omnipotent. If one's cultivation was too strong, Lu Ming would not be able to seal it. Even so, Xue Feng was already shivering. He looked at Lu Ming with fear in his eyes. Just now, he was almost killed by Lu Ming's sword. What kind of secret technique is this? It's so terrifying. He was horrified. For a moment, he dared not step forward to fight with Lu Ming. Kill. This time, it was Lu Ming's turn to take the initiative. He stepped forward and attacked Xue Feng. Buzz. Chapter 1079. The gate of seals glowed and flew towards Xue Feng like a ray of light. Moreover, the light emitted by the gate of seals also had a sealing effect. Xue Feng could not escape at all. His body was enveloped by the light of the gate of seals, and he could not help but stiffen. Swoosh! Lu Ming's body was like a flickering shadow as he rushed towards Xue Feng. the blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into let out a furious roar. Blood spurted out like a volcanic eruption and rushed towards the Gate of Seals. This time, Lu Ming was even faster. The blood sword pierced through the void and pierced through the blood leopard's body in an instant. Roar! The blood leopard let out a shocking roar as it broke through the Gate of Seals and clawed at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's expression changed. In a hurry, he struck out with his palm and clashed with the blood leopard's claw. With a loud bang, Lu Ming's body was sent flying a few thousand meters away. His qi and blood were in turmoil, and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Xue Feng's genuine yuan was too strong. The moment Lu Ming stabbed him, he broke through the Gate of Seals and launched a counterattack. However, the blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into was definitely not in a good state after being stabbed by Lu Ming. At this moment, he roared and did not dare to continue the battle. Instead, he turned and ran. Lu Ming did not chase after him. With his current cultivation, coupled with the 9 seals of the Divine Gate, he could indeed injure Xue Feng. However, it was almost impossible to kill him. If Xue Feng went all out, Lu Ming would not be in a good state either. In the blink of an eye, Xue Feng had disappeared. As for Wu Qingkong, he had already sneaked away before Xue Feng had escaped. As for the dragon carp, he did not dare to take it anymore. If he stayed, he would definitely be killed by Lu Ming. On the other side, the expression of the Ji family's strong man changed. In the end, he let out a long sigh and turned to leave. His combat strength was only on par with Wu Qingkong. If he continued to stay, he would only be courting death. In an instant, only Lu Ming, Sandalwood Fairy, and Kong Xian were left above the lake. Brother Lu, why did you disguise yourself? Even your aura has changed. We are suffering. Sandalwood said with a smile, There are some people that I don't want to see. Fairy, please forgive me. Lu Ming smiled. Then Lu Ming looked at the 3 dragon carps in the lake and said, Do you two also need dragon carps? It's all thanks to Brother Lu this time. Otherwise, if Xue Feng had arrived, Brother Kong and I probably wouldn't have gained anything. These 3 dragon carps naturally belong to Brother Lu. Sandalwood said, Fairy, you're too polite. I only need 2. As for the other one, you can take it. Lu Ming smiled and landed on the surface of the lake. He used the Divine Gate 9 seals. In a flash, the Gate of Seals appeared and locked the 3 dragon carps in place. Then his Zhan Yuan condensed into a giant hand and scooped up the 3 dragon carps. With a wave of his hand, 2 of the dragon carps disappeared. Lu Ming had collected them into a small lake in the mountain and river diagram. To refine the Nirvana pill, he only needed the true blood of the dragon carps, not the dragon carps. Therefore, 2 dragon carps were enough, and more would not be of much use. There was no harm in giving the other one to Sandalwood Fairy. Thank you, Brother Lu. Sandalwood Fairy was overjoyed. She was an alchemist, and this dragon carp was indeed of great use to her. After Sandalwood Fairy put it away, she was about to say something when her expression suddenly froze. She revealed a look of surprise and stared ahead with wide eyes. On the side, Kong Xian was the same. He seemed to have seen something extremely shocking. Lu Ming was a little surprised. He turned around, and in the next moment his eyes immediately widened. In front of him, at an unknown distance, there was a magnificent palace that emerged from the void. It was surrounded by clouds and mist outside, like an immortal palace. It was incomparably huge, but it was full of vicissitudes, as if it had crossed endless years. It seemed real and illusory at the same time. From afar, it was very unreal, like an illusion. What kind of palace is this? It wasn't there just now. Lu Ming was surprised. There was nothing there just now. So why would an ancient palace suddenly appear? Sacred mansion, it's the sacred mansion. Kong Xian muttered to himself, his eyes revealing an incomparable excitement. Sacred mansion? Both Sandalwood Fairy and Lu Ming were very surprised. This arcane realm was called the Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm. But Lu Ming had never known what it meant. He did not expect that there really was a sacred mansion. Yes, in the ancient books of our World Academy, there is a sacred mansion in this arcane realm, and there is a supreme existence inside. It is said that it surpasses the Emperor. Kong Xian said word by word. His eyes were filled with excitement, as if he was on a pilgrimage. An existence that surpasses the Emperor. Lu Ming and Sandalwood gasped a breath of cold air. In the divine wilderness continent, the Emperor was the strongest. In the eyes of all cultivators, the Emperor was already a supreme existence. Their combat strength was earth-shattering. With a palm strike, they could split the sky and crack the earth, penetrate the earth and pierce through the sky. It was boundlessly terrifying. The ultimate goal of all cultivators was to become an emperor and dominate the world. But now, there was a figure above the Emperor here. How could it not be shocking? Is this true? Lu Ming asked. Kong Xian shook his head and said, I don't know, but it is indeed recorded in the ancient books. And according to the ancient books, the sacred mansion rarely appears. Even when the emperors could freely enter this place, no one has seen it. It has always been a legend, but now it has really appeared. It is incredible. Kong Xian sighed again and again. He was very excited, and then he revealed many secrets. According to the old legends, there was an existence that surpassed the sovereign level living in the Saint Mansion. If someone obtained the Saint Mansion token, they could enter the Saint Mansion with it and obtain great opportunities. They might even have the chance to obtain the inheritance of that existence. And the Sacred Mansion token was in the Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm. It is said that this Sacred Mansion Arcane Realm has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Even if it is in existence above the Emperor, it can't live for hundreds of thousands of years, right? Sandalwood Fairy said with some doubts. The path of cultivation was against the heavens. The higher the cultivation, the longer the lifespan. It was already very heaven-defying for an emperor to live for 10 to 20,000 years. It was equivalent to a mortal living for hundreds of years, watching the world change like a living history book. As for the existence above the emperor, no matter how powerful it was, it could not live for hundreds of thousands of years. It was too shocking and unbelievable, unless it was a legendary god. Legend said that gods could exist with heaven and earth, but that was only a legend. I'm not too sure about that either. Kong Xian shook his head. Even so, their eyes were filled with flames. An existence that surpassed a ruler. This was too shocking. Once one reached such a boundary, one would definitely be all-powerful and unimaginable. If it was true, they would benefit endlessly if they obtained something. Roar! Roar! At this moment, a long howl resounded through the earth. It was extremely shocking. Awoo! The three of them saw a huge silver wolf appear on a mountain peak in the distance. It held the sky, and its aura was shocking like a tsunami. With a stomp, the mountain peak collapsed. The silver wolf broke through the sky and flew in the direction of the sacred mansion. Rumble! In the sky, a mountain ridge moved. Upon closer look, it was a giant snake swimming across the sky, heading toward the sacred mansion. Bang! The earth rumbled and trembled. Not far away, a giant ape as tall as a mountain stepped on the ground, causing the earth to crack and the mountains to tremble. Chapter 1080. The land seemed to be boiling. Powerful beasts went berserk and flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion. Along the way, if they saw any human martial artists, they would kill them immediately. There were even powerful beasts that killed each other. Caw! With a sharp cry, the sky darkened as a terrifying pressure pressed down. Oh no, run! Lu Ming's face changed as he rushed to the side. Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian's faces also changed as they followed Lu Ming to the side. A strong wind blew as a giant eagle flew over their heads. Its eyes were as sharp as swords as it glanced at the three of them. With a flap of its wings, a terrifying tornado was formed and swept toward the three of them. Wherever the tornado passed, not to mention trees, even huge mountains were uprooted and swept into it. The scene was horrifying. The three of them ran forward at full speed to avoid the tornado. After the giant eagle fanned out the tornado, it ignored Lu Ming and the others and quickly flew away. The three of them didn't dare to take it head-on. They used their movement techniques to avoid it. After flying for a few thousand miles, the tornado weakened and disappeared into the air. Phew! The three of them let out a long breath. That giant eagle was definitely a beast above the 7th level spirit god realm. It was too strong. They were too weak. It seems that the sacred mansion has really appeared. The powerful beasts in the secret territory have all been alarmed. Kong Xian said, "What are you going to do next?" Lu Ming asked, "We'll meet up with the other brothers and see if we could take a gamble. If we can get a little opportunity from the appearance of the sacred mansion, it will be endless benefits." Kong Xian's eyes were burning with passion. Sandalwood Fairy nodded. A group of people from the Medicine King Valley had also entered. She also wanted to meet up with them. "Fairy, why don't we join forces? The Medicine King Valley is good at inscription. The World Academy also has people who are good at inscription and martial arts. Only by working together can we bring out the best in each other." Kong Xian said, "Okay, it's decided. Brother Lu, will you come with us?" Sandalwood Fairy looked at Lu Ming. "No, I have other things to do. I'll take my leave now." Lu Ming shook his head, bid farewell to the two of them, and left. The two of them felt that it was a pity. If Lu Ming were to join them, their chances of success would undoubtedly be greater. Then the two of them left. With the appearance of the sacred residence, everyone in the secret realm was in an uproar. Everyone from the World Academy knew some secrets, and rumors about those above the ruler level had also spread. All the powerhouses who entered the secret realm were extremely enthusiastic. Powerhouses from various forces gathered and headed toward the sacred residence. Lu Ming flew all the way and soon saw a few corpses of ferocious beasts. They were all killed by the ferocious beasts. Lu Ming landed and his devouring power burst out, devouring the blood essence of the ferocious beasts. This was the reason why he had left Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian. Just now, the powerful vicious beasts in the mystic realm had gone on a rampage and killed many martial artists and weaker vicious beasts. Lu Ming didn't want to waste them, so he swallowed them and broke through to the next realm. Along the way, Lu Ming devoured all the human martial artists and ferocious beasts that he saw being killed. Many of them were at the spiritual god level. Lu Ming devoured more and more energy. After a full day, Lu Ming had devoured the energy of hundreds of human cultivators and vicious beasts. Then he found a hidden place and entered the mountain river diagram to begin refining. The energy of the blood essence was all used to improve the 9 dragons' bloodline. The other energy was all converted into vital essence. Lu Ming began to break through to the 2nd level of the spirit god realm. His current conception of heaven and earth was completely ahead of his cultivation. As long as he had energy, he could break through to the next realm. Boom! Boom! The majestic vital essence gathered in the spiritual god, making it more solid. The spiritual god sat cross-legged in his dantian, his whole body glowing and looking solemn. After a long time, with a rumble, Lu Ming's aura surged. The 2nd level of the spirit god realm. Lu Ming had finally broken through to the 2nd level of the spirit god realm, and his strength had greatly improved. If he encountered Xue Feng now, Lu Ming was confident that he could kill him even without using the 9 seals of the Divine Gate. Lu Ming stood up and stepped out, appearing outside the mountain river diagram. "Now I can fight for the Saint Mansion." Lu Ming revealed a confident expression. If it was before he broke through to the 2nd level of the spirit god realm, even if Lu Ming went, he might not be able to obtain any benefits. Many of the previous generation's geniuses had entered the mountain river diagram. Every overlord force probably had an expert like Shuefeng, and there might even be someone stronger. Moreover, these forces had many people. If Lu Ming was at the first level of the spirit god realm, even if he went, he might not be their opponent. Moreover, there was also Yang Patian. The battle strength of the 5 young tycoons was absolutely shocking and couldn't be underestimated. But now, Lu Ming was confident that even if he couldn't suppress all of them, it wouldn't be a problem for him to get a share of the loot. Using the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, Lu Ming turned into a streak of light and flew away. Soon, Lu Ming had flown a few 100,000 miles. So far, where is the Saint Mansion? Lu Ming was speechless. After flying a few 100,000 miles, he felt that the Saint Mansion wasn't close at all. It was still so far away that he couldn't see it. Lu Ming continued to fly, flying a few 100,000 miles. Unfortunately, it was still the same. He didn't feel that he was close to the Saint Mansion. The Saint Mansion was floating in the air like an immortal palace. Boom! Suddenly, there was an uproar in front of him. There were experts fighting fiercely. In the distance, the sky was shrouded in endless light. Various colored lights flickered as terrifying attacks collided continuously. Lu Ming was slightly surprised. He restrained his aura and flew over. Fairy, Brother Kong. Below, there were some figures looking up. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xan were among them. Lu Ming flew over to greet them. Brother Lu. Seeing Lu Ming, both of them smiled. What's going on? Lu Ming asked. They're fighting for the Saint Mansion's token. Fairy Sandalwood said. What? The Saint Mansion's token has appeared? Lu Ming was shocked. He didn't expect that the battle in the sky was because of the Saint Mansion's token. High up in the sky, dazzling lights flashed. It was impossible to see the faces of the people inside. Only 7 or 8 figures could be seen crisscrossing and fighting fiercely. They were all powerful and terrifying existences. Even Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xan could only watch from below, unable to interfere. There were many people watching below. Lu Ming saw Yin Bupo from the Sky Eagle Fort and some other experts from the Sky Eagle Fort. In addition, the Ji family from the Demon Mountain was also there. Everyone stared at the sky, watching the progress of the battle. Bang! Suddenly, a huge figure was shot down and fell heavily on the ground. It was a lightning eagle. Its body was covered in lightning, but there was no aura. It was dead. Senior brother. Yin Bupo and the others shouted in anger. Obviously, this lightning eagle was an expert from the previous generation of the Sky Eagle Fort. Swoosh! At this moment, another figure rushed down. Chapter 1081. Senior Brother Luo. Kong Xian's expression changed as he stepped forward. Obviously, this person was an expert from the World Academy. Sai, I'm no match for them. I don't need the Sacred Mansion token. Senior Brother Luo sighed. Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy were shocked. They knew that Senior Brother Luo was the #1 prodigy of the World Academy. He had awakened a 7th level divine bloodline and reached the 4th level of the spirit god realm. He shouldn't be weaker than Shuefeng, but he still couldn't defeat them. The number of people decreased, but the battle became more intense. Terrifying vibrations spread out for thousands of miles. The void was as fragile as a piece of paper. Bang! Bang! Following that, more and more people were sent flying out of the battlefield. For people were sent out of the battlefield in succession. They were severely injured and stood in the void, looking at the battlefield unwillingly with fear in their eyes. Lu Ming could see that there were only 2 figures left in the sky, fighting fiercely. Clang! Clang! The sounds of collisions were constantly heard as if 2 gods were fighting. Sizzle! The space cracked and the light faded. 2 figures appeared in front of everyone. Both of them were tall and burly with wild auras. One of them held a halberd in his hand. His black hair hung loosely behind his back, and his aura was shocking to the extreme. Just by standing there, the space around him was like water, constantly twisting and distorting, forming circular ripples. Yang Patian. This person was actually one of the top 5 youths, Yang Patian. The other person stood in front of Yang Patian. His body was even more burly than Yang Potion's, revealing 2 muscular arms. He was holding a huge spiked club. This person looked very young, definitely not more than 30 years old. He was in the same generation as Lu Ming. A prodigy of the younger generation was actually able to fight with Yang Patian. Who was this person? This person is from the Northern Plains and is known as the #1 prodigy of the Northern Plains. I heard that he fought with Yang Patian outside before, Kong Xian explained in a low voice. Lu Ming suddenly understood. So it was a prodigy of the Northern Plains. He had also heard that a prodigy from the Northern Plains fought with Yang Patian to a draw. Between the 2 of them, there was a purple-gold token floating in the air, emitting a hazy glow. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. This should be the Holy Mansion's token. Tuoba sure, let's settle this today. Yang Patian held the halberd in his hand. With a slight movement, he cut open a crack in space. His aura was wild. His hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning. That's exactly what I wanted. Tuoba sure grinned and waved his mace, creating a loud, rumbling sound. Waves of energy surged, and the token of the Saint Mansion was blasted high up into the sky. Shwa shwa. At the same time, the 2 of them moved, rushing towards each other, starting a great battle. Yang Patian had also comprehended the will of space, and his usage of it was even more terrifying than Dishan's. At the same time, he also had the support of other wills. When he struck out with his halberd, it was as if he could sever the void. Tuoba Shur's muscles bulged like an invincible warrior. His mace danced in the air, crushing everything in its path. When it collided with the ancient halberd, a terrifying rumble could be heard. The 2 of them clashed fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. The others gathered around to watch, their eyes filled with amazement. Is this the strength of the 5 giants? They're indeed powerful. Lu Ming exclaimed. At the same time, a strong fighting spirit appeared in his eyes. Sai, they're too powerful. They haven't even used the bloodline fusion, but they're already so powerful. I'm too far behind them. Kong Xian sighed. Have their bloodlines surpassed level 8 of the divine level? Lu Ming asked. That's right. The bloodlines of the 5 giants of the Central Continent are all at level 9 of the divine level. Sandalwood Fairy said. They're actually at level 9 of the divine level. Lu Ming was also a little surprised. Level 9 of the divine level was the highest level of bloodline. Each of them was extremely terrifying. The higher one's bloodline was the greater the difference in the talent or bloodline bonus brought by each level. Level 7 of the divine level was much stronger than level 6 of the divine level. However, level 8 of the divine level was much stronger than level 7 of the divine level, whether it was talent or bloodline bonus. As for level 9 of the divine level, it was even more terrifying. This was because level 9 of the divine level represented the peak and perfection. It was not something a level 8 of the divine level could compare to. If level 8 of the divine level meant that one had the potential to become an emperor, then level 9 of the divine level meant that one would definitely become an emperor as long as they didn't die. In the history of the divine wilderness continent, anyone who awakened level 9 of the divine level bloodline would become an emperor as long as they didn't die. The 5 giants of the Central Continent were equivalent to becoming an emperor in the future. It was no wonder that Yang Patian was so arrogant. He always acted as if he was above everyone else. He was destined to become an emperor, apart from people who were at the same level as him. Everyone else was just an ant in his eyes. Perhaps in the depths of his heart, he didn't even care about supremes. Clang! Clang! The battle continued and became more and more intense. Both of them were really angry for the Sacred Mansion token. Both of them were determined to get the Sacred Mansion token. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had exchanged more than 100 moves. The purple gold Sacred Mansion token rolled around in their energy. Crack! Suddenly, a crisp sound came from the Saint Mansion's token. Then, under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, the token crumbled into pieces. The Sacred Mansion token shattered. Everyone was stunned. Even Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur were stunned. They stopped fighting and looked at each other. No one had expected the Sacred Mansion token to shatter. Wasn't that the token to enter the Sacred Mansion? The owner of the Sacred Mansion was an existence that surpassed the Emperor. How could his token shatter so easily? Impossible. The Sacred Mansion token is indestructible. It can't be broken. This is fake. This is a fake token. Kong Xian shouted. A fake token? Everyone looked at each other. I know. Someone threw out a fake token. They want to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits. Someone guessed. Everyone's eyes flashed. They felt that it was very likely that someone wanted to take advantage of the situation. Fairy, Brother Kong, how did the token appear? Lu Ming asked. I heard that before this. Someone shouted that he found the token. Many people fought over it. Later, more and more people joined in. In the end, even Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur were attracted. Kong Xian explained. So you're saying that no one saw where the token came from? Lu Ming asked. Both Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian shook their heads. Previously, when everyone saw the Sacred Mansion token, they fought over it like crazy. Who would have thought that the token was fake? Lu Ming nodded. It seemed that someone was really trying to take advantage of the situation. Damn it! Which bastard did this? If I find out, I'll make him suffer. Ian Bupo from the Heavenly Eagle Castle roared. The Heavenly Eagle Castle lost a peerless expert because of this. Chapter 1082. Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Someone actually dared to mess with them. They deserved to die. The two of them scanned the crowd with murderous intent, sending chills down everyone's spine. In the end, they did not find anyone suspicious. Yang Patian snorted coldly and left. Tuoba Shur grinned and left as well. Since the Sacred Mansion token was fake, there was no need for them to continue fighting. Then the people from the other forces left one after another. Lu Ming did not leave. He had his eyes on a person. It was a slightly plump young man. He looked very simple and honest. However, his eyes were darting around, and Lu Ming felt that they were somewhat familiar. Fairy, Brother Kong, come with me. Lu Ming whispered. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian were slightly stunned, then nodded and followed Lu Ming in a certain direction. In front of them, the simple-looking young man was strolling in the mountains. He did not seem to be walking fast, but his speed was surprisingly fast. The three of them concealed their auras and followed the young man in the forest. Fairy Sandalwood and Kong Xian were curious. They did not know why Lu Ming was following the young man. Could it be that Lu Ming had noticed something? After traveling for 10,000 miles, the young man in front of them stopped and looked around. Then a light flashed on his body. In the next moment, the young man's appearance changed completely. He had turned into a monk. An scrupulous monk. Lu Ming recognized the monk at a glance. It was the same unscrupulous monk they had met before. Western Desert Holy Monk. The three of them hid behind a rock and concealed their auras as much as possible. Kong Xian transmitted his voice to the other two. They could only transmit their voice because they were too close. If they spoke, no matter how soft their voices were, Unscrupulous Monk would hear them. Sigh. At this moment, Unscrupulous Monk sighed, then reached into his chest and took out a purple gold token. The three of them were dumbfounded. Wasn't that the Sacred Mansion token? It was exactly the same as the one before. My hair, my Buddha is merciful. It's a pity that only a few experts died this time. Yang Patian and Tuoba sure were not injured. I thought they would both be injured. The monk muttered in a low voice, but Lu Ming and the other two heard him clearly. The three of them looked at each other, especially Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xan, whose eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was actually this fellow. To think that the one who threw out the fake Saint Manor token and started the battle was actually this fellow. Weren't the holy monks of the Western Desert compassionate and merciful? But how could this guy do such a thing? Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xan were both in a daze. Lu Ming was better off because he was mentally prepared. He had seen how heartless this monk was before. Looks like I have to do it again. Unscrupulous monk mumbled and revealed a harmless smile. With a wave of his sleeve, he strode away. Lu Ming and the other two stared at each other in bewilderment. In the end, they did not continue to follow. They returned to the place where the battle had taken place and gathered with the people from the World Academy and Medicine King Valley. Brother Kong, why can't we get close to the Saint Mansion? I've flown for millions of miles, but it still seems so far away. Lu Ming was a little puzzled. The Saint Mansion should be millions of miles ahead, but because it hasn't fully manifested, it looks so far away. In fact, we've been getting closer. Kong Xian explained. The World Academy was the most familiar with the Saint Mansion's secret realms. Lu Ming nodded. Immediately, Lu Ming, Sandalwood Fairy, and the others flew in the direction of the Saint Mansion. Hundreds of thousands of miles later, the Saint Mansion token has appeared ahead. What? The Saint Mansion token is mine. Let's go. They heard a series of loud shouts as figures streaked across the void and flew in a certain direction. That monk is stirring up trouble again. Kong Xan gritted his teeth. Let's go take a look, but don't do anything, Sandalwood Fairy said. Everyone flew in that direction. Sure enough, there was a terrifying battle in a place, and corpses were falling continuously. In the forest below, they saw a slightly plump young man with rolling eyes. It was the unscrupulous monk in disguise. At that moment, the unscrupulous monk was running around, picking up the storage rings of the dead. Sandalwood Fairy and Kong Xian's eyelids twitched. Is that really the saint monk of the Western Desert? Could it be fake? Sandalwood Fairy's eyes widened in disbelief that had completely shattered her understanding of the saint monk of the Western Desert. It should be real. I fought with him before, and I used a Buddhist cultivation technique, Lu Ming said. The unscrupulous monk was unfathomable. He was young, but his combat strength was extremely terrifying. Then Lu Ming and the others left the place because the Saint Mansion token must be fake. It must be the unscrupulous monk who is stirring up trouble. The group flew for millions of miles. A huge mountain peak appeared in front of them. The peak was bare, without any vegetation. It was all rocks. At this moment, the entire mountain peak was covered with inscriptions. It was glowing and incomparably resplendent. High up in the sky, the wind and clouds gathered. The huge palace was faintly discernible, as if it was in the sky, but it had not fully materialized. Thousands of figures stood in the distance of the mountain. They were all the experts of the major factions who had entered this time. Roar! Roar! Terrifying roars could be heard. Dozens of powerful beasts were fighting fiercely on the mountain. Blood chi soared into the sky. Lu Ming and the others were shocked when they saw that from afar. Those powerful existences in the secret realm were coming here, but they were fighting each other on the mountain. Why was that? The roars were endless, and the fighting was extremely fierce. Those who could come here were all existences above the 7th level of the spirit god realm. Howl! There was a wolf howl that was extremely mournful. Lu Ming saw a huge silver wolf that was 100 meters tall. However, its heart was grabbed by a huge eagle and it fell on the mountain peak. fresh blood seeped into the mountain peak, making the mountain peak shine even brighter. Caw! The giant eagle was not faring well either. Its wings were grabbed by a giant ape, and its wings were torn off. Then, a giant centipede cut open its stomach. All of them were giant beasts fighting fiercely. Giant beasts fell and were torn apart. A giant snake as big as a mountain was cut into several pieces by a giant mantis. However, the mantis head was bitten off by the giant snake before it died. Whoosh! Whoosh! More and more people came, but they all stopped in the distance and looked at the scene in shock. Half a day later, all the giant beasts fell on the mountain. Their blood seeped into the mountain as if they had become nourishment for the mountain. In the sky, the ancient palace was rumbling. Wind and clouds gathered, and it seemed like it would appear at any time. At this moment, the crowd finally dared to approach the mountain. Lu Ming looked over and saw more than 5,000 people. Lu Ming saw Yang Patian, Tuoba Shur, and Dishin. Junior brother Wu, is he the person you were talking about? Suddenly a cold voice was heard. A murderous gaze stared at Lu Ming. Lu Ming turned his head and frowned. A group of youths with swords on their backs stood not far away. Some of them were looking at Lu Ming coldly. Wu Chenkong. Chapter 1083. These were the experts of the Sky Martial Sword faction. Senior brother, that's him. His name is Lu Shaoqing. Wu Chenkong said to a man in his 40s. Humph. The man in his prime stepped out and stared at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. Lu Shaoqing, how dare you lay your hands on the people from the Talent Swordsmanship sect? I think you don't need to live in this world. The burly man's aura was oppressive as he exuded a powerful aura. The others heard the commotion and looked over. Lu Shaoqing? Among them, Jing Kongling, Junyu, and Yin Bupo were surprised. They had seen Lu Ming before. They were surprised to see Lu Ming. Isn't that the weakling with a combat strength of 5? Yes, that's him. Did he offend the Sky Martial Sword faction? He's courting death. Why do I feel that Wu Qingkong suffered a loss in his hands? Otherwise, why would he ask the experts of the previous generation to help him? He could have done it himself. That's true. It can't be, right? Is that weakling so powerful? Many people recognized Lu Ming. There are many discussions and various guesses. Lu Ming glanced at the man in his prime and looked at Wu Qingkong. Wu Qingkong, I let you go last time. Seems like you didn't learn your lesson. I'll send you on your way then. As soon as he said that, everyone was shocked. Could it be that Wu Qingkong had really suffered in Lu Ming's hands? Lu Shaoqing, don't be arrogant. You're the one who's going to die today. Wu Qingkong's face was cold. He wanted to chop Lu Ming into pieces. Clang! Clang! The sound of swords could be heard. Powerful sword auras erupted from the bodies of the Tianwu sword sect members. Their gazes were like swords as they stared at Lu Ming. Swoosh! Another tall and sturdy man in the prime of his life stepped out and stood beside the previous man. His aura was astonishing. There are 2 LV4 Spirit God Realm experts. Lu Ming's lips curled into a faint smile. There were 2 4th-level Spirit God experts in the Sky Martial Sword sect. Judging from their auras, they were not weaker than Xuefeng. They should be at the same level as Xuefeng. Oh no, it's them. Brother Lu, these 2 are the strongest geniuses of the previous generation of the Sky Martial Sword faction. Both of them have awakened level 7 divine bloodlines. Sandalwood Fairy said worriedly. Sky Martial Sword faction, don't go too far. If you want to kill Brother Lu, you'll have to go through the World Academy first. Kong Xian stepped forward and stared at the people from the Celestial Martial Sword sect. Although they had seen Lu Ming fight before, and he was indeed powerful enough to injure Xuefeng and force Xuefeng to retreat in a sorry state. But now, the Sky Martial Sword sect had 2 experts like Xuefeng. When Lu Ming fought Xuefeng, it was already very difficult. Facing two such experts, he was definitely not a match. World Academy, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Within the Sky Martial Sword sect, a robust man at the 4th level of the Spirit God realm spoke coldly and in an extremely domineering manner. What arrogance! From the World Academy, a man in his 30s stepped out, his aura exploding. This was the strongest person from the World Academy this time. He was also the top genius of the previous generation of the World Academy. He was on the same level as Xuefeng. One had to admit that the previous generation's geniuses were too weak compared to this generation. Those who had awakened level 7 divine bloodlines were already the top geniuses of their respective factions. They couldn't be compared to this generation's geniuses at all. The difference was too great. It was as if all the luck had been placed on this generation, allowing it to enter a golden age. Haha, Brothers Wu, why don't you count me in to kill Lu Shaoqing? With a cold laugh, a man in a blood-red robe stepped out. It was Xuefeng. Back when he was injured by Lu Ming, he had been waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Now that he saw Lu Ming fighting with the people from the Sky Martial Sword faction, how could he miss such a great opportunity? Xuefeng, you came at the right time. Let's work together and kill this person, one of the men from the Sky Martial Sword faction said. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on them. This Lu Shaoqing had offended so many people. It seemed like he was going to die today. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the white-robed man from the World Academy all had ugly expressions on their faces. If it was only the Sky Martial Sword faction, they might still be able to put up a fight. But with Xuefeng, it would be difficult. You're all here. You came at the right time. Let's settle this together today. Lu Ming smiled faintly and took a step forward. Everyone was stunned. What did he say? Facing such a situation, he actually said that he would settle it together? Was he crazy? Sandalwood Fairy and the others were also stunned. Brother Lu, Sandalwood Fairy called out. Fairy, Brother Kong, leave this place to me. Lu Ming smiled at Sandalwood Fairy and the others, then stepped out to face Xuefeng and the others. Brother Wu, this kid has a very evil secret technique that can seal people's movements. Let's work together and kill him. Xuefeng whispered to the two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction. All right, the two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction nodded. They had heard from Wu Qingkong about the battle between Lu Ming and Xuefeng. They knew that Lu Ming was not ordinary. Although he sounded strong, they did not dare to be careless. Boom! 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 The two experts from the Sky Martial Sword faction and Xuefeng unleashed their powerful auras at the same time. Shocking auras shot up to the sky and pressed down on Lu Ming. Whoosh! 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 The three of them moved and surrounded Lu Ming. The three of them are joining forces to deal with Lu Shaoqing. How can this be? Is Lu Shaoqing's combat strength that strong? Otherwise, why would Xuefeng and the others take him so seriously and need the three of them to join forces? They were not fools. When they saw the three's reaction, they knew that something was wrong and guessed what was going on. They were shocked by this guess. Other than the top 5 young geniuses, who else would be so important to Xuefeng and the others? Kid, aren't you very arrogant? Let's see how you're going to die. Xuefeng's eyes were cold. In the next moment, he unleashed his bloodline and performed bloodline fusion, pouncing toward Lu Ming. Kill! Lu Ming roared. His third bloodline appeared, and a wisp of power entered Lu Ming's body, turning Lu Ming's hair blood red. His killing intent rushed out like a tide. At the same time, the 7 dragon powers erupted at the same time, raising Lu Ming's strength to a terrifying level. The third bloodline turned into a blood-red battle sword and was held in Lu Ming's hand. With a slash, a blood-red sword light cut through the void, illuminating the sky and slashing toward Xuefeng. This power, at this moment, Xue Feng's eyes widened and he was terrified. This power was too shocking. It was much more powerful than the last time he fought with Lu Ming. It was much more powerful. Not good. Xue Feng's body turned cold as he tried his best to resist. But with a puff, the sword light slashed through. The blood leopard that Xue Feng had transformed into had one of its claws cut off and was sent flying far away. Xue Feng roared and retreated rapidly. At this moment, the two experts of the Sky Martial Sword Sect had also arrived. Two vast sword lights, as large as mountains, slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming slashed out with his sword and destroyed the two sword lights. His figure did not stop as he rushed toward Xue Feng. Xue Feng was terrified and retreated rapidly. You can't escape. Chapter 1084. The 9 seals of the Gate of God appeared, emitting light and suppressing Xue Feng. Covered by the light of the Gate of Seal, Xue Feng was frozen in the air. He tried his best to release his true essence, trying to break the Gate of Seal. However, Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the 2nd level of the Spirit God realm, and the Gate of Seal was even more powerful. Xue Feng couldn't break it at all. No. He was extremely anxious and kept growling. Swoosh! Lu Ming rushed over and slashed down with his sword. With a bang, Xue Feng was cut in half. Xue Feng's original body appeared, vomiting blood with a deep wound on his chest. He wanted to retreat, but the Gate of Seal was still there. He couldn't retreat even if he wanted to. No, spare me! Xue Feng screamed in horror, but what greeted him was a sword light. Pucci! Xue Feng was cut in half. Even the spirit god in his body couldn't escape. It was smashed and turned into ashes. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. It was so fast that many people couldn't react in time. The 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword Sect wanted to save him, but it was too late. How could this be? The 2 experts of the Sky Martial Sword Sect were about to launch a fierce attack on Lu Ming when they saw the scene. Their pupils shrank sharply, and they subconsciously stopped in their tracks. Hiss! Gasps could be heard coming from all around. Xue Feng was killed by Lu Ming in 2 moves. He couldn't resist at all. How could this be? Xue Feng had awakened a level 7 divine bloodline, and his cultivation had reached the 4th level of the Spirit God realm. His combat strength was absolutely terrifying, but he was killed by Lu Ming so easily. This was unbelievable. Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xan, and the people of the Medicine King Valley and the World Academy were dumbfounded. They were completely stunned and couldn't believe what they had seen. Wu Chenkong was even more tongue-tied. He was almost scared to death. It had only been a few days. A few days ago, Lu Ming could only fight to a draw with Xue Feng. With the help of the Gate of Seal, he barely had the upper hand. But now he had completely crushed Xue Feng. In just a few days, Lu Ming's combat strength had increased by a large margin. This was too shocking. It's your turn now. Lu Ming looked at the 2 experts from the Sky Martial Sword Sect. His blood-red hair danced in the wind as his killing intent surged. The 2 experts from the Celestial Martial Sword Sect were no longer as confident as before. Brother Lu, in my opinion, this is all a misunderstanding. One of them revealed a smile that was uglier than crying. Lu Ming, who was surrounded by the 3 of them, was still able to kill Xue Feng with a thunderous strike. This really frightened them. Misunderstanding? No, there is no misunderstanding. Today, I will kill all of you. I don't need a reason. Lu Ming said indifferently. In the next moment, he took a step forward and rushed towards the 2 of them like a beam of bloody light. Damn it! Let's attack together and kill him. The 2 of them roared and unleashed their bloodlines at the same time, turning into 2 gigantic swords. Without a doubt, both of them had divine grade bloodlines and had comprehended divine grade martial skills. Their battle prowess was incomparably terrifying. Clang! Clang! Sword cries rang out as the other experts from the celestial martial sword faction made their move. Unsheathing their swords, sword beams shot up into the sky as they charged towards Lu Ming. Seal. The bloody sword floated in the air as Lu Ming formed a seal with both of his hands. A sealing gate flew out and enveloped one of the gigantic swords. In an instant, the gigantic swords were immobilized. Kill. Lu Ming held the sword in his hand and struck one of the swords away. At the same time, he took several steps, and the terrifying power of the 9 dragons' sky stomping steps erupted. Boom! 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 After taking 7 consecutive steps, Lu Ming stepped on the sword that was sealed by the sealing gate. The sword immediately crumbled, and Lu Ming's body appeared. However, with a flash of sword light, his head fell to the ground. The spiritual deity of this person flew out from his body in panic and fear. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming's left hand executed the suppressing hell-heaven art and slapped out continuously. His right hand held the bloody sword as he executed the 5 slaughter styles. Dang! The remaining 4th-level spiritual deity's sword was sent flying as the sword body trembled continuously. The bloody sword slashed out millions of sword beams. The escaping spiritual deity let out a blood-curdling scream as he was turned into ashes by the sword beams. At the same time, a few sky martial sword sex experts were also killed by the sword beams. Lu Ming turned into a killing god as he charged towards the last 4th-level spiritual deity. Run, run, run. At this moment, that person had been scared out of his wits and was running for his life. Lu Ming was too strong. Not to mention other things, just in terms of strength, Lu Ming had completely surpassed him. Coupled with the sealing gate, it was simply unstoppable. Where do you think you're going? Lu Ming stared at him and rushed past. Wherever he passed, he killed a few more sky martial sword sex experts. In an instant, Lu Ming approached rapidly and formed a seal with both of his hands. Another sealing gate appeared. That sword was instantly immobilized as Lu Ming charged forward. No! Spare me! Save me! That person roared, but the outcome was already decided. Lu Ming caught up and killed him with lightning speed. From then on, the 3 experts who wanted to kill Lu Ming were all killed by Lu Ming. He also killed a few sky martial sword sex experts along the way. The other sky martial sword sect members were terrified. How would they dare to fight? They all fled. So strong! The others present looked at Lu Ming in shock. They were tongue-tied and couldn't say a word. Lu Ming's combat strength was too shocking to kill 3 experts in a row. Yang Patian and Tuoba sure looked at Lu Ming in the sky with a serious expression. Previously, they didn't put anyone else in their eyes except for each other. But now, Lu Ming attracted their attention. Looks like we have another opponent. Tuoba sure licked his lips with battle intent in his eyes. Yang Potion's eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Just when everyone thought that the battle was over, Lu Ming didn't stop. That was because there was still one person alive. Wu Chengkong. Wu Chengkong was running for his life in fear. Damn it! How can Lu Shaoqing be so terrifying? His combat strength has increased too quickly. Once we get out, I must ask the experts in the sect to kill him. He must not be allowed to live. Wu Qingkong's mind was filled with venomous thoughts. Suddenly, he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. He turned around in shock and saw that Lu Ming was already behind him. Boom! Lu Ming could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He threw a punch and Wu Qingkong was smashed into pieces. However, Wu Qingkong obviously had a life talisman. With a flash of white light, the life talisman wrapped around him and he disappeared into the air. Lu Ming snorted and flew back to where he was. At this moment, everyone was looking at Lu Ming with awe and respect in their eyes. Too strong. Lu Ming's combat strength was far above the average second-class Sky Prides. His combat strength was comparable to the 5 giants. It seemed that there was going to be another young giant in the world. "Brother Lu!" Sandalwood Fairy's beautiful eyes flickered. She looked at Lu Ming and didn't know what to say. "Oh, I happened to have a breakthrough in my cultivation when I left 2 days ago," Lu Ming explained. Chapter 1085. Outside the World Academy's Jade Wall. The space trembled, and Wu Qingkong appeared in a flash of white light. "Ah, damn it!" Wu Qingkong roared as soon as he appeared. Everyone's eyes turned to look at him. "Qingkong, what's going on?" One of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes frowned and asked Wu Qingkong. Wu Qingkong had been killed. 2 of the top geniuses of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect had died in battle. "Lu Shaoqing, it's that bastard, Lu Shaoqing," Wu Qingkong roared like a mad beast. "What? Lu Shaoqing again?" "Lu Shaoqing is a god of death. First, he killed Sanguinarum of Cold Blood Hall and many other experts. Then he killed Wu Tsang. Now, even Wu Qingkong has been killed by him. Hee hee. 2 of the top geniuses of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect have died in the hands of the same person. How interesting." Cold Blood Hall's face darkened. Why did they have to mention Cold Blood Hall every time Lu Shaoqing was mentioned? Lu Shaoqing again. Why, you're not with Wu Long and the others? The Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes asked. Wu Long was the top genius of the previous generation of the Celestial Martial Sword Sect. Wu Long and the others have been killed too. They're dead. Wu Qingkong gritted his teeth. What? Wu Long and the others are dead? Who did it? Did Yang Patian do it? The Celestial Martial Sword Sect Supremes roared, believing that Yang Patian did it. No, it's Lu Shaoqing. He did it. Senior Brother Wu Long, Senior Brother Wu Kai, and Shui Feng joined forces to kill Lu Shaoqing. Who would have thought that they would be killed by Lu Shaoqing instead? Wu Qingkong's face was ferocious as he explained the situation. The scene quieted down. Everyone's face was filled with shock. All of this was actually done by Lu Shaoqing alone. Even with the cooperation of 3 great experts, he was still able to create such a battle record. This was too shocking. Another giant! An elder exclaimed. The people of Cold Blood Hall wanted to cry. They had sent such a god of death in with the people of Cold Blood Hall. How sad! Saint Mansion's secret realm. Buzz! At that moment, the enormous mountain began to tremble. The radiance grew even more resplendent, bringing the crowd's gazes back to the enormous mountain. Lu Ming's gaze also landed on the huge mountain. He didn't devour the blood essence of Shui Feng and the rest because the monarch god was here. If he did that, the monarch god might notice something. Now was not the time to reveal his identity. The light from the mountain became more and more resplendent. Finally, 9 purple rays of light shot out. Whoosh! 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 Suddenly, amidst the purple light, a token flew out from each of them. It's the Sacred Mansion token. Snatch it. There are 9 pieces. This one is mine. Immediately, the scene became chaotic. All kinds of auras erupted and rushed toward the 9 command medallions. There was no doubt that the token that had rushed out of the giant mountain was the real token of the Saint Mansion. Scram! Yang Patian roared in anger. His aura was astonishing. The heavenly halberd in his hand swept out horizontally. Dozens of experts screamed miserably as they were cleaved in half, dying on the spot. Yang Patian made a grabbing motion, and a Saint Mansion token appeared in his hand. His eyes were like lightning as he scanned the surroundings. Everyone was shocked and did not dare to step forward. On the other side, Tuobashir waved his mace and smashed a group of people into meat paste. He then grabbed a Saint Mansion token. The others sighed. They knew that there was no point in thinking about these 2 tokens. This one is mine. Lu Ming stepped out and rushed toward the nearest Saint Mansion token. A terrifying, murderous intent erupted. Many people were shrouded by his murderous intent, and their faces changed in horror. They quickly retreated, not daring to compete with Lu Ming. The power that Lu Ming had just created was too strong. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed a sacred mansion token. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shur, and Lu Ming each had a token. The others did not dare to compete with the three of them, so they could only target the others. This was a bloody battle, and it was incomparably fierce. The experts of the major forces attacked with all their might to compete for the tokens. The palace, left behind by an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm, was too tempting. Even an Emperor realm expert would go crazy if they came, let alone them. People were constantly killed, and corpses fell like raindrops. In the end, the Ji family gathered and obtained a token under the leadership of an LV4 spirit god expert. The World Academy and Medicine King Valley worked together and also obtained a token under the leadership of an LV4 spirit god expert. The Demon Mountain obtained a token. The most surprising thing was that the Emperor God obtained a token with the Space Will. He was so fast that no one could stop him. There was also a monk whose sleeves fluttered in the wind. He had a baby face and seemed harmless to humans and animals. He killed a group of experts with a single palm strike and seized a command medallion. Even Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur looked at the monk with a serious expression. The Western Desert Saint Monk. Yang Patian murmured to himself, "It's that unscrupulous monk again." Lu Ming whispered. The last token fell into the hands of the Floating Mountain sect. As for the Cold Blood Hall, the Sky Eagle Castle, and the Sky Martial Sword sect, they were very unhappy because their leaders had died in battle. Those who obtained tokens were separated into several areas, far away from the others. The others were helpless. Although they were excited, those who obtained tokens were very powerful. Only the Emperor God looked the weakest, but he had the Space Will, so no one could catch him. This is the Holy Mansion token. With this token, you can enter the Holy Mansion. Lu Ming looked at the token in his hand and then injected his genuine chi into it. Buzz! The Sacred Mansion token suddenly trembled and emitted light. A halo enveloped Lu Ming. In addition, there were 3 more halos floating around him. Why are there 3 more halos? Lu Ming was a little surprised. At this time, the others also realized the problem. As long as they injected their genuine chi, 4 halos would appear on the token. One of them would envelop them, and the other 3 would appear. I know. These 3 halos mean that we can bring 3 more people in. That should be the case. I think there's a formation around the Sacred Mansion. We can only enter if we're enveloped by these halos. Some of them shouted, and their eyes lit up. In that case, wouldn't there be an extra 27 spots? Many people looked at those who had obtained tokens, especially Yang Patian. Since the Emperor God had obtained tokens alone, they had extra places. Brother D, I'm willing to pay a high price for 3 places. Can I? Ian Bupo from the Sky Eagle Castle looked at the Emperor God and spoke first. Ian Bupo, you're too greedy. Can you afford to buy 3 places? Someone was unhappy and wanted to buy a place from the Emperor God. Brother Yang, someone looked at Yang Patian and wanted to buy a place from him. Get lost. Yang Patian spat out coldly. Those people could only retreat. Chapter 1086. As for the Ji family, Floating Mountain, Demon Mountain, and the World Academy, they didn't even have enough tokens, so they wouldn't sell them. For a time, only Lu Ming, Monk Wuliang, and the Dharch were available. Brother Lu, Sandalwood Fairy, looked over. I'll give my slot to Medicine King Valley and the World Academy. Lu Ming smiled. The people from Medicine King Valley and the World Academy were overjoyed. They had 3 more slots now. In the end, Immortal Emperor sold the 3 spots, and Scrupulous Monk was all smiles. Finally, he made a huge profit and sold the 3 spots as well. In this way, excluding Yang Potion's 3 slots, There were a total of 33 people who could enter. Buzz! At this time, the light of the giant mountain was extremely bright, forming a huge beam of light that shot into the sky. The beam of light hit the palace in the sky, making a deafening roar. Rumble! The palace slowly appeared. At first, it seemed real and illusory, but slowly it became real. After a few minutes, the palace became completely real. It was filled with an ancient aura, floating in the air like a huge city. Whoosh! Yang Patian was the first to move. As if he was traveling through space, his body moved and appeared in front of the palace. He then stepped out and rushed in. Let's go! We can't let Yang Patian beat us to it. The others who had a slot shouted and rushed forward, afraid that Yang Patian would beat them to it. If there were treasures in the sacred residence, the first to enter would naturally be able to obtain the benefits. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of figures were shrouded in a circle of light as they rushed toward the palace. Lu Ming and the others were also among them. In front of the palace there was a half-open door. Yang Patian was about to rush in. Go! The others also rushed in quickly. Nothing happened. Dozens of people rushed through the door. The others, who didn't have a slot, looked at each other. I don't think there's anything wrong at all. We don't necessarily need a token to enter. The news about the token is spread by the World Academy. It might not be true. Someone said with a fiery gaze. That's right. I don't think anyone from the World Academy has entered before. It's probably not true. There were others who agreed. Charge! I don't believe it. Some people couldn't hold it in any longer and rushed into the palace. However, as he flew, he suddenly let out a miserable shriek, and his entire body exploded, turning into ashes. The others were dumbfounded. Gulp! Those who said they didn't believe the World Academy just now all gasped and swallowed their saliva. Their faces were pale. If they had rushed forward, they would have been the ones to die. Lu Ming and the others rushed in and found a huge corridor. It was very long and extended all the way to the front. What a strong pressure! As soon as they entered this place, everyone landed on the ground. This was because there was a powerful pressure here and it was a restricted area. Moreover, not only could they not fly, but the pressure on their bodies was also extremely great, causing their speed to decrease by more than 100 times. This is gravity. Lu Ming sensed it carefully and found that this was gravity. It was 100 times stronger than the gravity outside. Everyone circulated their true essence and stepped forward. However, the gravity was too strong. Their speed was about the same as an ordinary person running. Compared to their original speed, it was a far cry, and this corridor seemed to be no less than 100 miles long. However, since they had entered this place, they could only move forward bravely. Gradually, the distance between them slowly increased. Bam! Bam! Yang Patian walked in front. His body glowed as he strode forward. Then, Tuobashir's muscles bulged. Like a wild beast, he also strode forward at an extremely fast speed. In addition, Lu Ming's speed was also extremely fast, second only to Tuobashir. As for the unscrupulous monk, his body was covered in golden light as he walked beside Lu Ming. The two of them came in slightly later, so they were slightly behind Yang Patian and the unscrupulous monk. Behind them were a few burly men. They were the strongest prodigies of the previous generation of their respective forces. Their cultivation had reached the 4th level of the spirit god realm. What was surprising was that the Dharch god was also walking beside these people. He had the space concept, so the pressure he faced was much less. As for the 2nd grade prodigies like Lady Sandalwood and Kong Xan, they were further behind. Everyone strode forward. Slowly, they became more and more accustomed to the gravity here, and their speed became faster and faster. This trip lasted for 2 days. Yang Patian was the first to walk out of the corridor and rushed out. Stop right there! Tuobashir shouted and followed closely behind Yang Patian. Then Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk also stepped out and walked out of the corridor. Boom! Boom! When they walked out of the corridor, they heard a violent roar. In front of the corridor was a large hall. Tuoba Shur and Yang Patian were fighting fiercely. The halberd and mace kept colliding, and the roar was deafening. On both sides of the hall there were rows of shelves. On the shelves were some jade bottles, jade boxes, and chests. Obviously, the two were fighting for these things. This was the legendary sacred abode of an existence that surpassed the Emperor realm. How precious would the things inside be? Without hesitation, Lu Ming and the unscrupulous monk's eyes lit up as they rushed toward the shelves on both sides. Get lost! You're courting death! Yang Patian and Tuoba Shur roared and charged toward the two. Tuoba Shur attacked the unscrupulous monk. He waved his mace and crushed the void. It was like a mountain range smashing toward the unscrupulous monk. My hair, my Buddha is merciful. The unscrupulous monk chanted the name of Buddha. His body emitted a golden light, and he looked solemn as if he was the reincarnation of Buddha. He slapped out a golden palm print and collided with the mace. With a boom, he blocked Tuoba Shur's attack, and the two began to fight. On the other side, Yang Patian charged toward Lu Ming. The halberd slashed down, and the space directly cracked. It even turned into the power of space and wrapped around the halberd, making it more destructive. Lu Ming's 5-colored conception surrounded him, and the 7 dragon powers were added to his body. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind. The battle sword formed by the 3rd bloodline in his hand changed and turned into a blood-red halberd. The 3rd bloodline was a drop of blood. It could be transformed into a sword, a spear, a saber, or a halberd at will. It could be transformed into anything. Clang! Lu Ming held the blood-red halberd in his hand and slashed down, colliding with Yang Patian's halberd. Clang! A terrifying vibration was heard. The two figures swayed slightly and then fought again. Boom! 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 In the main hall, the 4 of them fought against each other. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. Peak 2nd level Spirit God. Lu Ming realized that Yang Patian's cultivation was at the peak 2nd level Spirit God, which was not much higher than his. However, his combat strength was extremely terrifying. He was the strongest young expert that Lu Ming had ever met. The 4 of them fought in the main hall. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. Chapter 1087. The eyes of the 4 of them flashed. Almost at the same time, they gave up on their opponents and rushed toward the shelves on both sides. They understood that they could not do anything to their opponents for the time being. If they continued to fight, the situation would become even more chaotic when there were more people. Therefore, the 4 of them began to plunder the treasures on the shelves at the same time. Lu Ming waved his hand, and a white light spread out, enveloping the jade bottles, jade boxes, metal boxes, and so on the shelves. They were all put into the mountain river diagram. There was no time to see what they were now. They would put them away first. The 4 of them searched frantically. In just a few breaths, the items on the shelves had been swept clean. In particular, the unscrupulous monk actually put a shelf into his storage ring, which made people speechless. But then Lu Ming and the others followed suit and put away the shelves. At this time, a few more figures rushed out of the corridor. They looked at the empty hall on both sides and were stunned. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming and the others had already rushed into the depths of the hall. There was a door there. Charge! The experts behind them, including the Emperor God, rushed forward at the same time, following closely behind Lu Ming and the others. After rushing through the door, they arrived at another hall. However, this one was bigger and empty. On the opposite side of the hall, there was still a door and a faint light spread out. Their eyes lit up and they rushed in at top speed. It was still a hall, but it was exceptionally spacious. In the air of the hall, there were 4 balls of light shining dazzlingly. They were 4 weapons floating in the air. They were of different colors, but they emitted terrifying pressure. These are ruler spiritual weapons. Yang Patian growled and immediately rushed toward one of them. Lu Ming's eyes also lit up. The so-called ruler spiritual weapons were the emperors of spiritual weapons. Just like the martial emperors of martial artists, they stood at the peak of many spiritual weapons. Ruler spiritual weapons were top-grade level, 9 spiritual weapons. Even some rulers might not have them. This was because ruler spiritual weapons had domains that could assist rulers in battle. Even if a ruler came here, he would be envious, let alone them. They immediately rushed towards an emperor spirit weapon. Lu Ming rushed towards a small, fiery, red pagoda. The small pagoda looked like it was made of fire jade, and it emitted an astonishing amount of heat. Sovereign spirit weapon. Behind him, the other experts also arrived. When they saw the Emperor's spirit weapons, their eyes immediately turned red and were filled with greed as they pounced towards the 4 weapons. One of them pounced on Lu Ming. One of them was a robust man that was over 40 years old and possessed a cultivation at the 4th level of the spirit god realm. The other was an imperial god. However, Lu Ming was 1 step faster. His body was like a stream of light as he appeared in front of the small pagoda and reached out to grab it. However, just as Lu Ming was about to grab it, the small pagoda emitted a halo of light. Lu Ming's grab was actually unable to grab it. Inscription formation. Lu Ming's eyes moved. This small pagoda was protected by an inscription array. However, Lu Ming felt that as long as he spent some time, he would be able to break it. Bang! Lu Ming turned his claw into a palm and slashed at the halo. Bang! The halo trembled, but it was still blocked. At this moment, the imperial god and the robust man also rushed over. The Emperor's spirit weapon is mine. The robust man's eyes turned red as he attacked the small pagoda. The imperial god slashed out with his sword and slashed at the halo. After 2 bangs, the halo was still intact. Get lost! Lu Ming shouted coldly as the blood halberd swept out and attacked the robust man and the imperial god at the same time. The 2 of them were shocked and tried to block it at the same time. The blood halberd carried a terrifying murderous aura as it surged like a tide and suppressed everything. With a bang, the 2 of them were swept away by Lu Ming. Kill! Lu Ming stared at the imperial god and charged towards him. He planned to kill the imperial god here. The imperial god was the most outstanding descendant of DE. As long as he killed the imperial god, DE would probably be heartbroken. Whoosh! The blood halberd pressed down and slashed at the imperial god's head. The imperial god's face was extremely solemn. The space around his body began to tremble like water waves. Great space slash! The imperial god said solemnly. He held the sword with both hands and slashed out. The space tumbled and a terrifying crack slashed towards Lu Ming. This crack had the power to cut through space and could cut through everything. Of course, this was relative. The blood halberd in Lu Ming's hand changed and turned back into the blood sword. With a flash of sword radiance, the space was cut open, including the great space slash. This was the terrifying part of the 5 slaughter styles. No matter what weapon was used, it could unleash its power. This was because the 5 slaughter styles was not mainly about the moves, but about the intent. Once the intent was reached, any weapon would be able to unleash its power. The imperial god's face changed, and he quickly retreated. Kill! Lu Ming's blood-red hair fluttered as his murderous aura surged. He stepped forward and charged towards the imperial god. Clang! The imperial god tried his best to block, but he was no match. He spat out blood and retreated with a pale face. It had to be said that the imperial god was strong. He had merged the space will, sword will, and golden flames will. Especially after his space will reached the 4th level, it was even more mysterious and terrifying. His combat strength was even stronger than Wu Qingkong's. However, compared to Lu Ming, he was still a distance away. He was no match for him. Lu Ming's eyes were cold as he closed in on the imperial god. The Imperial God had no choice but to use the transient step. His body kept flickering. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lu Ming formed a seal with both hands, and a sealed gate was formed. The Imperial God's face changed drastically. He had seen Lu Ming use the sealed gate to seal Shui Feng and the others, and then kill them. Space escape! Di Shen roared and coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, his body became illusory. Finally, with a bang, his body dissipated and turned into an illusory shadow. His real body had already disappeared without a trace. No one knew where it had escaped to. Lu Ming looked at the defense line outside the main hall. Just a moment ago, the Emperor God had actually traveled through space and appeared in a main hall outside. What a mysterious space will! Lu Ming's eyes flashed coldly. He did not continue to pursue. There were many opportunities to kill the Imperial God. Get lost! He turned around and rushed toward the brawny man. The brawny man was trying his best to break the small pagoda's array. Lu Ming rushed back and struck out with his palm. The brawny man was sent flying while vomiting blood. The brawny man looked at Lu Ming with a grave expression. On the other side, an expert from each side rushed toward Yang Patian, and Scrupulous Monk and Tuoba Shur. The experts who rushed toward Unscrupulous Monk and Tuoba Shur vomited blood and retreated. As for the experts who rushed toward Yang Patian, they were trapped by Yang Potion Space Will and killed in one blow. Yang Patian was not in a good mood today. Originally, he was high and mighty in the central continent. Other than the other four of the 5 young giants, no one was his match. However, in this trip to the Saint Mansion's secret realm, Tuoba Shur appeared first. His combat strength was not weaker than Yang Potion's, and he fought with him several times. Later, Lu Ming and Unscrupulous Monk appeared one after another. They displayed astonishing combat strength that was not weaker than Yang Patian. Moreover, Yang Patian had never seen them before. This made him extremely unhappy and angry. Chapter 1088. The other experts' expressions were ugly, but they did not dare to continue snatching. The combat power of Lu Ming and the other 3 was too strong. Obviously, they were much stronger than them. If they went crazy and went all out to kill them, they would be in danger. For a moment, no one dared to fight with Lu Ming and the others. However, after a flash of light in their eyes, they bypassed Lu Ming and the others and rushed into the depths of the hall. There was a door there that led inside. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming kept attacking. His 3rd bloodline turned into a sword and slashed at the light shield protecting the small pagoda. After dozens of attacks, the light shield was finally broken. Lu Ming was overjoyed and grabbed the small pagoda. It's so hot! Lu Ming felt that his palm was almost burned and there was a meaty smell. Lu Ming quickly put the small pagoda into the mountain river diagram. Almost at the same time, Yang Patian and the others also broke the formation and put away the treasures. At the same time, the 4 of them rushed inside. There was another hall inside. Rumble. As soon as they entered the hall, they saw that the masters were fighting fiercely. There was only one thing floating in the air of the main hall. It was a jade plate that was sparkling and translucent, emitting a vast and boundless pressure. This pressure was too shocking, surpassing everything. It was as if it was the embodiment of the entire world. It was incomparably terrifying, far surpassing the sovereign's spiritual weapon from before. What kind of treasure is this? It's amazing. Lu Ming was a little stunned. Yang Patian and the others were also a little dazed. Then, their eyes lit up with a blazing fire. Judging by its aura, it had surpassed the Emperor's spiritual weapon. It must be a peerless divine weapon used by someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm. It seemed that the World Academy was right. This was indeed the residence of someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm. How terrifying would a divine weapon used by someone who had surpassed the martial Emperor realm be? Whoosh! Whoosh! Almost at the same time, the 4 of them rushed toward the jade plate. Get lost! Kill! Their attacks were aimed at the masters. The masters' faces changed drastically. They quickly blocked the attacks and retreated with injuries. Damn it! Those people were furious and sullen, but there was nothing they could do. They were truly helpless. They were all geniuses of the previous generation. In their era, they were all-powerful figures. They were high and mighty, looking down on geniuses of the same generation. But after 10 or 20 years, the current generation had reached the golden age. Each and every one of the geniuses was countless times more brilliant than them. And now, the geniuses of the younger generation had to berate them and suppress them. This made them feel a sense of sorrow. This treasure is mine. Young Potion's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. What a joke! Who do you think you are? Tuobashir shouted coldly, not giving Yang Patian any face. And me F.A. I think this treasure is fated to be with this poor monk. Everyone, please don't fight with this little monk over it. Unscrupulous monk still had a smile on his face, but his fiery eyes betrayed him. Lu Ming was too lazy to talk nonsense with them and rushed towards the jade plate. Boom! A golden palm print covered Lu Ming. It was that heartless monk. Benefactor, this treasure is really fated to be with this little monk. Why do you have to fight with this little monk over it? Unscrupulous monk said. Fated my ass. Stupid monk, get lost. Lu Ming slashed at unscrupulous monk with his sword, colliding with the golden palm print. Benefactor, don't be angry. Unscrupulous monk shouted. His body glowed like a golden Buddha as he threw out a few palm strikes with terrifying power. Stupid monk, stop pretending in front of me. You were the one who used a fake sacred mansion token to cause a huge battle. Don't think that others don't know. I saw it by chance. Lu Ming shouted. Unscrupulous monk's face stiffened. Yang Patian and Tuobashir, who were fighting, stopped and looked at unscrupulous monk coldly. So you're the one who stirred up trouble. Stupid monk, die. Yang Patian roared and charged towards unscrupulous monk. Tuobashir also held his mace and charged towards unscrupulous monk. The two of them were filled with killing intent towards unscrupulous monk. How could they be fooled by unscrupulous monk? They had been trying to find out who the mastermind was. My hair. Benefactors, it's a misunderstanding. Unscrupulous monk shouted and jumped up and down, trying his best to defend himself. Lu Ming moved and pounced towards the jade plate. Buzz! Suddenly, the jade plate vibrated and emitted a terrifying aura. Lu Ming felt like he was going against heaven and earth. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell down. Buzz! Buzz! The jade plate vibrated slightly and emitted a supreme light. Countless inscriptions appeared in the hall and formed terrifying chain-like objects that danced in the hall. Unscrupulous monk, Yang Patian, and Tuobashir could not help but stop what they were doing and look around in shock. They were also greatly shocked by the sudden change in events. What's going on? At this moment, a group of people rushed in. It was Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and the Emperor God. At this moment, the people behind had already arrived. When they saw this scene, they were inexplicably shocked. Whoosh! A vortex suddenly appeared on the ground. The vortex was black, and it emitted a terrifying suction and devouring force. Ah! Oh no! Save me! A few of the weaker cultivators screamed as they were devoured by the vortex and disappeared without a trace. Oh no! Lu Ming and the rest rushed up to the sky, but it was extremely difficult for them. The devouring force was too strong, and it was pulling them down. Save me! A sharp cry was heard as Een Bupo transformed into his true form, a giant eagle. He flapped his wings with all his might in an attempt to defend himself. However, he could not do so and was being pulled down. With a loud roar, his figure disappeared. At the same time, Kong Xian was also being devoured. Sandalwood Fairy's glabella emitted a silver light. Elixir pills flew out and formed a pair of wings to support her. However, she was still sinking rapidly. Get out of here! Lu Ming roared and flew towards Sandalwood Fairy. He grabbed her slender waist and tried to bring her out of the hall. However, it was impossible. The devouring force was too strong, and he could not move her at all. Brother Lu, don't worry about me. Escape by yourself. Sandalwood Fairy pushed Lu Ming and fell into the vortex. At this moment, Yang Patian and the rest tried their best to get out of the hall. However, it was useless. The devouring force was too strong, and they could not get out. Lu Ming was in the same situation. His body was sinking too. No, Lu Ming saw a few level 4 spirit gods and the emperor god being devoured. In the end, only Lu Ming, Yang Patian, and Scrupulous Monk and Tuoba Shur were left. Buzz! Suddenly, the devouring force surged and multiplied several times. Lu Ming and the other 3 were swallowed and dashed into the vortex. Chapter 1089. Lu Ming felt like he was drifting in the eternal darkness, not knowing where he was drifting to. Slowly, his mind became more and more confused, as if his memories were fading. Everything that happened in the past seemed to become blurry and slowly dissipated. Slowly, Lu Ming became oblivious to everything. After an unknown period of time, Lu Ming suddenly sat up. With a creak, he found himself sitting on a bed. Where is this? What happened to me? I seem to have had a very long dream just now. Lu Ming looked around in confusion. At this moment, the door opened and a beautiful girl walked in. The girl was 14 or 15 years old and was very beautiful. When she saw Lu Ming wake up, she immediately revealed a happy smile and cheered. Brother Ming, you're finally awake. You really scared me to death. Yaoer. Looking at Lu Yao's worried expression, Lu Ming felt warm in his heart. He then asked, Yaoer, what happened to me? I remember that I went to awaken my bloodline 3 days ago. What happened after that? Brother Ming, you went to awaken your bloodline 3 days ago. During the process, you suddenly fainted. You have been unconscious for 3 days. During these 3 days, you have been having nightmares. You kept calling out strange names like D. Brother Ming, are you all right? Lu Yao said worriedly. I'm fine. It's just a nightmare. Lu Ming smiled faintly. He really had a dream. It was a very long dream. But for some reason, that dream was becoming more and more blurry in his mind. He almost couldn't remember it. He only vaguely felt that in that dream, Lu Yao left him. Later on, he obtained a treasure, cultivated to become an expert, and went on an adventure on the continent. He only had a vague impression of it, but the more he thought about it, the more blurry and ethereal the dream became. What a strange dream! Lu Ming smiled. He, Lu Ming, was just a useless young master in Fiery Wind City who couldn't cultivate. How could he have such a strange dream? Yao! Did my bloodline awakening fail? Lu Ming asked. Brother Ming. Lu Yao wanted to say something, but stopped. Say it. I'm fine. Lu Ming smiled. Brother Ming, it's a failure, but it's fine. Even if Brother Ming can't cultivate, your place in Yao's heart won't change. My father has already discussed it with your mother. In half a month, we will hold our wedding. Lu Yao blinked her eyes and said. After she finished speaking, she was a little shy and her face was a little red. The wedding will be held in half a month? Lu Ming was slightly taken aback. At this moment, he didn't know why, but he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. A figure appeared in his mind. This figure was very blurry, and he couldn't see the face clearly. It was a person that Lu Ming had met in his dream. A woman. A feeling of reluctance rippled in Lu Ming's heart. This figure seemed to be very important to him. Who is she? Why do I feel heartache? Was it really a dream? Lu Ming muttered to himself in a daze. Brother Ming, what's wrong? Don't scare Yaoer. Lu Yao called out softly. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He reacted and smiled. Nothing. I just thought of that dream again. Brother Ming, after all, it's just a dream. Don't think too much. Drink the medicine. Lu Yao picked up the medicine and fed it to Lu Ming. At this moment, two people walked in from outside the door. One was a beautiful woman, and the other was a beautiful teenage girl. Mother, mid-autumn moon. Lu Ming called out. Ming, have a good rest. In half a month, you will be the groom. Li Ping smiled slightly, revealing a doting expression. Yes, young master. Mid-autumn moon, congratulations to you. The girl by the side said softly. Mid-autumn moon. Lu Ming looked at mid-autumn moon. In that dream, mid-autumn moon seemed to have become a martial arts genius. However, it was just a feeling. Lu Ming felt that the dream was a little blurrier. As time passed, it slowly faded away. Ming, you just woke up. Have a good rest. Don't think too much, Li Ping said. Then, she left the room with mid-autumn moon and Lu Yao. That dream is so strange. Who is that figure? In the room, Lu Ming was lying on the bed in a daze. Time passed quickly. Day by day, Lu Ming's body recovered quickly. The dream in his mind became more and more blurred. As time passed, it became more and more blurred. He believed that he would soon forget it completely, but he didn't know why. Every time he thought of that dream, a figure would appear, causing Lu Ming to feel a piercing pain in his heart. Who is that figure? Why does it feel so real? Lu Ming whispered. That was the figure of a woman. In Lu Ming's mind, it was hard to erase. In the backyard of the Lu family, a small stream flowed. Beside the stream, there was a pavilion. In the pavilion, a young man and a young woman were cuddling together. Brother Ming, Yao, will marry you tomorrow. We will never be separated from each other again, Lu Yao said softly. Her eyes were filled with anticipation and shyness. Lu Ming hugged Lu Yao. His mood was extremely relaxed. The gentle breeze emitted a faint fragrance of flowers. This is really good. Lu Ming looked at the sky and thought, if he couldn't cultivate, then so be it. Wouldn't it be good if he could live an ordinary life? Lu Ming enjoyed such a life. That dream was ultimately a dream. Just let it drift away with the wind. Only that figure couldn't be erased. Occasionally it would appear in Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming, wake up. Suddenly a voice entered Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming was stunned. He turned his head and looked around, but he didn't see anyone. Lu Yao was still in his arms, as if she didn't hear anything. What are you looking at? I'm here in the stream. That voice sounded again. Lu Ming was shocked and hurriedly looked toward the stream. He saw a little tortoise floating in the stream, staring at him with its eyes wide open. Are you talking to me? Lu Ming's pupils suddenly widened, revealing a look of disbelief. What are you looking at? Who else could it be if not me? The little turtle berated. Brother Ming, what's wrong? Who are you talking to? Lu Yao looked at Lu Ming in surprise. Lu Ming took a deep breath to calm himself down. He said, nothing, you heard wrong. Yao, you can go back first. I'll pick you up tomorrow. Okay, I'll wait for you. Lu Yao blinked his eyes and trotted away. Then Lu Ming looked at the little turtle again and said in surprise, a tortoise? No, a turtle can actually talk. Could it be a legendary king-level turtle? No, Senior, it's Senior. Junior Lu Ming pays his respects to Senior. Lu Ming bowed to the little turtle. As far as he knew, only the legendary demonic beasts that had reached the king level could speak. He was shocked that there was a king-level monster in the backyard of the Lu family. There might not even be a king-level monster in the entire Burning Sun Empire. King-level my ass. I'm the world turtle, the head of the top 10 battle beasts. What king-level? It's not even worthy to carry my shoes. Boy, Lu Ming, you're in an illusion. Wake up quickly. Are you going to stay in it for the rest of your life? Chapter 1090. Illusion. Dreamland? That's impossible. I'm me. I remember everything that happened to me. How could I be in a dreamland? Senior, you must be joking. Lu Ming furrowed his brows. What are you joking about? You're Lu Ming. In the real world, you were deprived of your bloodline by Lu Yao. Thanks to the help of the 9 Yang remnant spirit, you merged with the 9 dragons' blood essence and awakened your bloodline. Have you forgotten? Little Tortoise shouted. What? Yao! Or deprived me of my bloodline? Impossible. How is that possible? Nonsense. Lu Ming was in disbelief. However, after hearing Little Tortoise's words, the dream he had back then, which was getting fainter and fainter, it seemed to have become clearer. Nonsense. Also, you rose in the end, participated in the Battle of Luck, won first place, and became the first on a list of top 1,000 talents in the Eastern Wilderness. Moreover, you're the Zongzi of the Talisman Puppet Sect. Now, the Talisman Puppet Sect is besieged by Martial Emperor Di and is in danger. Don't you care? Little Tortoise scolded loudly. With every word, Lu Ming's body trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with complicated emotions. Talisman Puppet Sect, list of top 1,000 talents. Lu Ming muttered to himself. He felt that the dream was getting clearer and clearer, as if it was about to appear. What's your name? I seem to have had a dream before. There was also a little tortoise. Lu Ming's eyes looked even more perplexed. His dream world was slowly emerging. He was in the midst of the intersection between dream world and reality. He could not tell which was real and which was fake. Perhaps everything was just a dream? Little Tortoise held back for a long time. His eyes widened, and finally he shouted, My name is Dandan. You gave it to me, you bastard. It's so fucking unpleasant. Dandan. Lu Ming muttered to himself. He seemed to have thought of something. Also, your little lover, your little wife, Xian Yinqing, don't you care about her? She was caught by her father, and her life is uncertain. Are you going to give up just like that? Dandan shouted. Boom! 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 The name Xia Nianqing exploded in Lu Ming's mind like a thunderbolt. That figure that could not be erased, that figure that made his heart ache at the thought of, suddenly became clear and vivid in Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming. Nianqing, Nianqing, this is an illusion. Lu Ming's eyes lit up all of a sudden, emitting endless brilliance. Everything the surrounding scenery seemed to have been shattered by Lu Ming's punch. It began to peel off and eventually disappeared completely. Lu Ming discovered that he was standing in a long corridor. Dandan was lying on his shoulder. Lu Ming let out a long breath. He was extremely shocked. That illusion was too powerful. It erased his real memory and made him fall into an illusion forever. He couldn't extricate himself. This time it was really dangerous. If it weren't for Dandan, he might really be trapped in the illusion forever. That would be equivalent to dying. Thinking of this, Lu Ming couldn't help but feel a little scared. His back was wet with cold sweat. Kid, this place is no small matter. Emperors can't do it. Be careful. I'm going to hide. After Dandan finished speaking, it automatically went into the mountain-river diagram. Lu Ming looked around. He remembered that they were swallowed by a vortex, but he was the only one around. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shur, Sandalwood Ferry, and the others were nowhere to be seen. This was a passage that led straight ahead. Lu Ming pondered for a moment and walked forward. After walking through the passage, he arrived at a secret room. The secret room was very large. Above the secret room, Lu Ming saw a longan-sized bead floating in the air. The moment Lu Ming stepped into the secret room, the bead suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Amidst the light, a figure appeared. The figure sat cross-legged in the air, and the bead happened to be between the figure's eyebrows. The figure was not very burly, but the aura it emitted was earth-shattering. It gave Lu Ming the feeling that he was facing the heavenly path. A vast heavenly might filled the air. It was irresistible and unstoppable. This was Lu Ming's intuition, because facing this figure was like facing the entire world. It was not that Lu Ming had never felt the majesty and pressure of a ruler, but compared to this figure, it was simply child's play. It was as if a ruler was an ant in front of this figure. Gulp! Lu Ming swallowed a mouthful of saliva and raised his head with difficulty to look at the figure. Fortunately, the supreme aura was restrained after a slight release. The figure opened his eyes and looked at Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt as if he had been completely seen through. "You actually managed to break through the illusion I set up. Not bad," the figure said. "Junior, Lu Ming greets Senior." Lu Ming bowed. He knew that the existence above the ruler in the World Academy was most likely the figure in front of him. He was secretly shocked. It was said that the Saint Mansion's secret realm had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. Could it be that the person in front of him had lived for hundreds of thousands of years? This was really unimaginable. As if seeing through Lu Ming's thoughts, the figure said, "Little guy, don't think too much. I can't have lived for so many years. What you see is just the sacred heart I left behind and a trace of my origin imprint. The real me has already fallen many years ago." Sacred heart? Lu Ming was puzzled. He didn't understand what a sacred heart was at all. "Well, it's normal that you don't understand. You're in a remote and barren island, so it's normal that you don't know. Above the ruler is the Saint Realm, also known as the Saint Realm. You've condensed a sacred heart," the figure explained casually. "Saint Realm, Saint Realm," Lu Ming muttered to himself. He finally knew what the realm above the ruler realm was. Saint Realm, Saint Realm. The figure in front of him must be a Saint Realm expert. "Well, little guy, you have great luck. Unfortunately, you're not an inscriber. When I was alive, I became a saint through the path of inscription. Otherwise, I could pass on my mantle to you." The figure suddenly let out a long sigh. Inscriber inheritance. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Although he wasn't an inscriber, his second body was. This time he focused on the path of inscription and had progressed to an extremely profound realm. It would be great if his second body was here. "Senior, did the others not pass the illusion?" Lu Ming asked. "No, they all failed. However, I won't really make things difficult for them. They've all woken up. Look." The saint waved his hand and a series of images suddenly appeared in the air. Yang Patian, Tuoba Shur, Monk Wuliang, Kong Xan, and the others were in a secret room, looking around. Sandalwood Fairy. Chapter 1091. This little girl is very talented in the path of inscription, but unfortunately, she's still a little lacking. I'll give her some benefits and hope that she can benefit from it," the saint said. Lu Ming was happy for Sandalwood Fairy. Although the saint had already fallen, he was still a saint when he was alive, an existence that surpassed the emperor's. If he said that he would give some benefits, it would definitely be no small matter. Even the emperors would be jealous. "All right, little guy, since you were able to come here and pass my test, I won't let you go back empty-handed. I'll give you some benefits and then send you out." With that, the saint waved his hand and the images disappeared without a trace. "Senior, wait a minute. I might be able to inherit your mantle," Lu Ming hurriedly said. "You? Haha, little guy, don't talk nonsense. I see that you don't have any spirit fire at all. How can you inherit my mantle?" The saint smiled faintly, looking very calm. "Senior, have you heard of the twin life restriction?" Lu Ming asked. "Twin life restriction?" The saint frowned slightly and looked puzzled. Obviously, he had never heard of it. "Senior, the twin life restriction can allow one to cultivate a second body." Lu Ming immediately told him about the twin life restriction and what he had obtained. When the saint first heard that the twin life restriction could actually allow one to cultivate a second body that was the same as the original body and could be cultivated wholeheartedly, he was extremely shocked. Even with his knowledge, He had never heard of such a strange technique in the world. Later on, when he heard that Lu Ming had obtained it in the Battle of Providence, he felt relieved. It was not strange to obtain any kind of fortuitous encounter in the Battle of Providence. This was because the saint had also participated in the Battle of Providence when he was young. There's actually such a secret technique in the world. According to what you said, not only did your second body inherit your talent, but it also has no distracting thoughts. In that case, it's really suitable for my mantle. The saint sighed and his eyes lit up. Back then, due to an accident, he was seriously injured and on the verge of death. He fled to the divine wilderness continent and found this mystic realm in order to avoid his enemies. But in the end, he still died there, leaving behind his saint heart and a wisp of imprint. The imprint was attached to the saint heart, which was why it could be preserved for so many years, but it would dissipate sooner or later. However, when an expert was about to fall, they would not wish for their life's cultivation and achievements to go up in smoke. They would want to find a suitable successor to pass on their legacy. Lu Ming was undoubtedly a suitable candidate. But Senior, my second body is currently trapped in a place by an enemy. I'm afraid it won't be able to come for the time being. Lu Ming sighed. Oh, how about this? You take this disc array. As long as you give this disc array to your second body and let him activate the inscriptions on it, you can be directly transmitted here. A disc array appeared in the saint's hand and handed it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He took it and thanked the saint again. Well, my name is Tian Xian. You can call me Tian Xian Saint. That's it. I'll send you out now. There's no need to open this secret realm anymore. I'll seal this secret realm forever. No one can enter. After the heavenly profound saint finished speaking, he was about to send Lu Ming and the others out. Senior, please wait. Lu Ming blurted out. The heavenly profound saint was startled. Allow me to disguise myself. I still have enemies outside. Lu Ming chuckled as his figure changed once again. A moment later, his figure became thinner and turned into a pale-faced young man. Even his aura changed tremendously. Now, no one could recognize him. Done, Lu Ming said. The heavenly profound saint waved his hand, causing the space to twist. Lu Ming felt a force pulling him away, causing his figure to disappear instantly. At this moment, Sandalwood Fairy, Yang Patian, and the others outside the Saint Mansion were all enveloped by a power and disappeared. World Academy, outside the all-knowing jade disc. The 9 light pillars suddenly disappeared, allowing the all-knowing jade disc to return to its calm state. What just happened? The place was immersed in an uproar. Even the 9 heavens supremes were astounded. What just happened? Why did the 9 light pillars suddenly disappear? Those who went in haven't come out yet. A supremacy from a major faction said with a grim expression. Many people looked at a supremacy from the World Academy. I don't know either. This has never happened before. The supremacy from the World Academy said solemnly, Can you open it again? A supremacy asked. The supremacy from the World Academy shook his head, causing an uproar among the crowd. There were many people from the various major powers within. In fact, the strongest successors of the Floating Mountain and Devil Mountain were all within as well. If they were to be trapped within, it would be an incomparably huge loss for them. However, the people from the Sky Martial Sword Sect and the Cold Blood Hall were gloating. This was because their successors had been killed by Lu Ming and they had come out long ago. The most outstanding prodigies of the previous generation had also been killed. Even if the rest of them did not come out, they would not have suffered as great a loss as the other forces. At this moment, the space above the all-knowing jade disc twisted as figures emerged one by one. They're out! They're out! Many people were overjoyed. More than 10,000 people appeared in the sky. The crowd saw Yang Patian, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, and other geniuses among them. What's going on? How's the sacred mansion? One by one, the supremacies asked with excitement in their eyes. Previously, when Wu Qingkong was killed, they learned about the sacred mansion from Wu Qingkong. They were all shocked, but also looked forward to it. They couldn't wait to rush in themselves. An existence surpassing the Emperor realm was too tempting, especially for many supremacies. They were stuck at the supremacy level and couldn't break through to the Emperor realm. If they could obtain the inheritance or enlightenment of an existence surpassing the Emperor realm, they might be able to break through. In a flash, Sandalwood Fairy, Kong Xian, Junyu, and the others flew to their respective supremacies and told them about the situation in the sacred mansion. What? You all failed! When they heard that Kong Xian and the other geniuses didn't pass the test, they sighed with regret. But then they looked at Yang Patian, Tuobashir, and Monk Wuliang. These people had surpassed the second-tier geniuses. They were the top geniuses. Perhaps they had succeeded? My hair, Buddha is merciful. I'm ashamed. My mind is not strong enough. I still need to train myself. Monk Wuliang had a solemn expression as he chanted the name of Buddha. His face was filled with compassion. Lu Ming among the crowd looked at him with disdain. If he hadn't seen the monk's true appearance, he would have mistaken him for an eminent monk. Monk Wuliang's words implied that he had failed too. Damn it, that illusion is too powerful. I didn't pass it either. Tuobashir grinned. Tuobashir will fight another day, Yang Patian said coldly. Then he stepped out and headed out of the World Academy, disappearing in an instant. No one tried to stop him. Not only was Yang Patian a peerless talent, he was also from the heaven-suppressing, godly troop. Chapter 1092. It was obvious that he had failed as well. It seemed that no one had succeeded this time. No, there was one more person. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. Where was Lu Shaoqing, the young genius who had killed Shueluozi, and the experts of Cold Blood Hall, Wu Tsang, Shuefeng, and the other LV4 spirit gods, and Wu Qingkong? Why was he nowhere to be seen? Where's Lu Shaoqing? The Supremes of Cold Blood Hall and Sky Martial Sword Sect scanned the area with their sharp eyes. They spread out their spiritual senses to search for Lu Ming. Supremes, Lu Shaoqing is good at disguising himself. He can even change his aura. He must be in the crowd. Sanguinarium shouted. He had fought with Lu Shaoqing in Pill City, so he knew Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura very well. However, Lu Shaoqing's appearance and aura were completely different when they were in the Saint Mansion's secret realm. If he had not recognized Lu Ming's devouring power, he would not have recognized Lu Ming's identity. Therefore, he knew that Lu Ming must be proficient in the art of disguise. Humph. Do you think I wouldn't be able to find you if you disguised yourself in the crowd? I'll check you one by one. A terrifying aura rose from the Sky Martial Sword Sect Supremes. His spiritual senses shrouded Lu Ming and the others who had entered the Saint Mansion's secret realm like a storm. Many people's expressions changed drastically. Lu Ming's expression also changed slightly before returning to normal. Check them one by one? How are you going to do that? Some Supremes from other forces said unhappily. Just soul search them one by one. The Sanguinarium Supreme sneered. Haha, soul search, who do you think you are? How can I let you soul search the disciples of Floating Mountain Sect? The Supremes from Floating Mountain Sect laughed coldly. That's right, who do you think you are? How can I let you soul search the disciples of Sky Eagle Castle? If you want to capture Lu Shaoqing, think of a way yourself. The Supremes from Sky Eagle Castle sneered. Some of the Supremes from the Overlord forces looked coldly at the Supremes from Cold Blood Hall and Sky Martial Sword Sect. They were all Overlord forces, so they were not afraid of them. The Celestial Martial Sword Sect and Cold Blood Hall had suffered heavy losses because of Lu Shaoqing. Wasn't it ridiculous that he wanted to search their disciples' souls? The faces of the Supremes from Cold Blood Hall and Sky Marshal Sword sect turned ugly. The disciples of the Overlord factions may leave, but the other factions and rogue cultivators must stay behind. We will search their souls. The Supreme Being of the Celestial Marshal Sword sect pondered for a moment before speaking up. What? You want to search our souls? No, don't be so overbearing. I will never agree. This is the World Academy, not the Sky Marshal Sword sect or Cold Blood Hall. Immediately, the people from the smaller factions started shouting. Everyone had their own secrets, so how could he allow others to search his soul? Shut up! The Supreme Being of the Sky Marshal Sword sect bellowed as a boundless sword might burst forth, causing many people to gasp for breath. Overlord forces were tyrannical and tyrannical. Other than forces of the same level, other forces were just ants in their eyes. That was the truth. Once the Emperor appeared, no one dared to challenge him. Whoosh, whoosh! At this moment, the wind and clouds gathered high in the sky. Endless clouds gathered to form a huge face, and boundless Emperor's aura emanated from it. The Emperor has appeared! Someone shouted. Many people's faces changed drastically. Greetings, Your Majesty! Everyone in the World Academy, be it the ordinary disciples or the Supreme Beings, bowed respectfully, because this was the Emperor of the World Academy. The people from the other factions also hurriedly bowed. This was their respect for the Emperor. Let them go. Since we are in the World Academy must ensure everyone's safety. The Emperor said indifferently, but his voice was firm. But the Supreme Being of the Sky Marshal Sword sect wanted to say something. Say no more. Go. The Emperor interrupted him. The Supremes of the Sky Marshal Sword sect and Cold Blood Hall nodded. They had no choice but to obey the Emperor's words. Let's go. The Supreme Being of the Sky Marshal Sword sect glanced at the people from the smaller factions and the rogue cultivators, and then left with the people from the Sky Marshal Sword sect. The Supreme Being of Cold Blood Hall also left with the people from Cold Blood Hall. After that, the people from the other overlords also left. With a whoosh, the huge face in the sky disappeared without a trace. The Emperor's aura also disappeared without a trace, as if it had never appeared. However, the people from the smaller factions did not leave. They planned to leave through the teleportation formation of the World Academy. This was because the Sky Marshal Sword sect and Cold Blood Hall might intercept them outside the World Academy. It was too dangerous to go out like this. The teleportation formation was the safest way. The World Academy had no reason to refuse. This was because they had to pay a large sum of spiritual crystals and primordial stones to use the teleportation formation. Lu Ming was also among the crowd. He also planned to use the teleportation formation to leave the World Academy. In the sky, Kong Xian and Sandalwood Fairy were looking around. They were probably looking for Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming did not plan to show himself. He found a random mountain and sat down cross-legged to cultivate quietly. There were too many people now. There would definitely be a queue for the teleportation formation. It would be better to leave in a few days. After the three of them left, Lu Ming set off. After paying a sum of primordial stones, Lu Ming stepped into the teleportation formation. Saint City, I'm here. Xiao Qing, how are you now? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. His destination was the Saint City of the Central Continent. It was the imperial capital of the Central Continent Ancient Saint Dynasty, the largest city in the world. The teleportation formation flashed, and Lu Ming's figure disappeared. The Saint City of the Central Continent was the largest city in the Divine Region. It was the imperial capital of the Ancient Saint Dynasty. There were 8 citadels surrounding the Saint City. These 8 citadels all had teleportation formations. If an outsider wanted to enter the Saint City, they had to first teleport to the citadel and then fly to the Saint City. On this day, the teleportation formation of one of the citadels in the east flashed, and Lu Ming's figure appeared. Lu Ming did not stop at the citadel. He left the citadel and soared into the sky, flying towards the Saint City. The citadel was 10 million miles away from the Saint City. However, Lu Ming's current speed was terrifying. Soon he crossed the 10 million miles, and a huge city appeared in front of him. Ancient vicissitudes of life, filled with the traces of time. This was Lu Ming's first impression of the Saint City. The huge city walls were filled with the marks of swords and sabers. It seemed to be describing the ancient history of the Saint City. The central continent's holy city was very large and majestic. However, it was definitely not the largest city in the divine wilderness continent, nor was it the top. At the very least, the 9-dragon city of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace was much larger than the holy city. However, the Saint City was still the largest city in the world. The holy city had existed for far too long. It had left behind countless legends, and it also contained countless secrets. Moreover, there were many entrances to secret realms in the Saint City. In fact, those secret realms could be considered as a part of the Saint City. Together with those secret realms, the Saint City was terrifyingly huge. Chapter 1093. Lu Ming flew towards the holy city and landed on a pipe. He followed the crowd and walked through the city gate. There were soldiers guarding the city gate. Lu Ming looked around and realized that these soldiers were all experts in the spirit embryo realm. After a casual check, Lu Ming entered the holy city. Instantly, an ancient aura rushed towards him. In the holy city, every street, palace, and house was filled with the aura of time. It was as though they had traveled through time and space from millions of years ago. What rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It even contains origin chi. Also, the concept of heaven and earth is very clear. The entire holy city is like a huge array that continuously gathers the spiritual energy and origin chi of heaven and earth. Lu Ming sighed. If he cultivated here, his cultivation speed would definitely be very fast. The holy city was divided into the outer city, inner city, and the most important palace. Ordinary martial artists, small forces, and rogue cultivators all lived in the outer city. As for the inner city, it was the residences of the powerful forces in the holy city. For example, the residences of the ancient Saint dynasty's princes, dukes, and ministers. Of course, the other overlords of the central continent had branches in the holy city that were guarded all year round. As for the palace, it was where the core members of the ancient Saint dynasty's Xie family lived. Lu Ming strolled around casually. He was now in the outer city. He was thinking about how to sneak into the palace and find out about Xian Yinqing. After strolling for a while, Lu Ming walked towards a restaurant. Restaurants were the best places to gather information. After ordering a few dishes, Lu Ming sat down at a table. In another 2 months, the ancient Saint dynasty's million-year state sacrifice will be here. The holy city will be bustling again. That's for sure. It's a million-year state sacrifice. How important is it? Not only will the overlords of the central continent gather in the holy city, but other forces will also send people over. Even the forces of the western desert, northern plains, southern underworld, and eastern wilderness will send people over. That's going to be bustling. It's a rare sight. When the time comes, all the geniuses will gather. It's a rare event. That's most likely the case. There are many experts in this generation. When the geniuses gather, there will be competition. Haha. Not long after Lu Ming sat down, he heard some important news. A million years of national sacrifice? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The ancient Saint dynasty's Xie family had been established for 1,000,000 years. It was truly astonishing. In the entire divine wilderness continent, which force could have such a long history? It was too shocking. Although the ancient Saint dynasty had declined and the emperors had divided their territories, they still had to respect the ancient Saint dynasty in name. They still had to listen to the ancient Saint dynasty's orders. Of course, this was only a name. Therefore, the ancient Saint dynasty's million-year national ceremony was something all the major powers had to attend, even if it was just for show. At that time, the emperors of some overlord forces might come. I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, at that time, there will definitely be many experts. I heard that the Imperial Palace has already issued an order to recruit more Imperial Dragon Guards to maintain order in the Holy City and protect the Imperial Palace. There's such a thing? When will the recruitment begin? I want to give it a try too. It has already started today and has been recruiting for the past half a month. You can go and give it a try. However, the recruitment requirements of the Emperor Dragon Guards are very high. Without the cultivation of Spirit Embryo Realm, it's impossible to enter. Lu Ming continued to listen. True enough, he heard a lot of news. Emperor Dragon Guards? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Emperor Dragon Guards were the Imperial Guards of the ancient Saint dynasty. They were in charge of guarding the Imperial Palace and protecting the Emperor's relatives. Wasn't he trying to sneak into the Imperial Palace? Wouldn't it be fine if he joined the Emperor Dragon Guards? However, the Emperor Dragon Guards were in charge of guarding the Imperial Palace and protecting the Emperor's relatives. Therefore, he had to investigate his identity thoroughly before he could join. Otherwise, if anyone could join, wouldn't the safety of the Emperor's relatives be in danger? Lu Ming's gaze shifted. He picked up his wine cup and walked towards a table at the side. Hello, brothers. I heard you say that you want to join the Emperor Dragon Guards, right? Lu Ming raised his cup and smiled. There were two burly men sitting at the table. One of them looked like he was in his 40s, while the other looked like he was in his 30s with a full beard. That's right. What can I do for you, little brother? The burly man with a full beard looked at Lu Ming and asked. Little brother comes from a small power and has just entered the sacred city. I want to find a job and join the Emperor Dragon Guards. I heard the two of you talking about this and thought that we might be able to work together in the future. Therefore, I wanted to make friends with you. Lu Ming smiled. Hearing Lu Ming's words, the two of them relaxed and revealed a smile. He wants to join, so I won't go. However, little brother, the requirement to join the Emperor Dragon Guards isn't low. You need to have the cultivation of Spirit Embryo Realm. The burly man in his 40s laughed. That's great. Little brother has just broken through to Spirit Embryo Realm, so I can give it a try. As he said that, Lu Ming's body gave off a faint aura. It was the aura of the first level of Spirit Embryo Realm. Not only could illusory breath change one's aura, it could also hide one's cultivation. Now, Lu Ming had hidden his cultivation to the first level of Spirit Embryo Realm. When they found out that Lu Ming was only at the first level of Spirit Embryo Realm, the two of them were even more relieved. The burly man with a full beard said, Little brother is so young, and to be able to reach the first level of Spirit Embryo Realm, you can be considered a prodigy. Respect. Big brothers are flattering me. Come, this meal is on me. Let's drink to our heart's content. Lu Ming said straightforwardly. Haha, how can we accept this? The burly man in his 40s laughed. This was the sacred city. Any random restaurant's food wasn't cheap. Since Lu Ming was treating, the two of them had a good impression of Lu Ming. The three of them chatted and drank. As Lu Ming had just arrived, there were many things he didn't know about the sacred city. He consulted the two of them, and the two of them told him everything they knew. Lu Ming understood that the two of them came from a small power outside the sacred city called Black Spear Sect. They weren't far from the sacred city and often came to the sacred city to purchase items. The burly man in his 40s was called Ma Wu, and the burly man in his 30s was called Ming Lu. Ming Lu, what a coincidence. If you read my name backwards, isn't that Ming Lu? Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. The three of them chatted and drank. After 3 rounds of drinking, Ma Wu and Ming Lu were drinking to their heart's content. Junior brother Ming Lu, since you want to join the Imperial Dragon Guards, you can stay here and register with little brother Lu. I'll return to the sect first and tell them about you. If you work in the Imperial Dragon Guards, it will be much more convenient for our Black Spear sect to do things. Ma Wu said. All right, Senior Brother Ma, you can return first. I'll go register tomorrow. Ming Lu nodded. Immediately after, Ma Wu bade farewell and left. Lu Ming and Ming Lu found an inn nearby to stay, planning to register tomorrow. Soon night fell. Lu Ming restrained his presence and entered Ming Lu's room silently. Who? As soon as Ming Lu opened his mouth, Lu Ming struck out with his palm and knocked Ming Lu unconscious. He then put Ming Lu into the mountain river diagram and asked Dandan to engrave a formation, trapping him on the ground. I'm sorry, I'm borrowing your identity. There will be compensation in the future. Lu Ming mumbled. His muscles and bones began to squirm and transform into Ming Lu's appearance. Then his presence changed and became extremely similar to Ming Lu's. I'm still missing a beard. Lu Ming smiled and walked out of the inn. He bought a fake beard and stuck it on his face. Instantly, he looked exactly like Ming Lu. Now, even if Ma Wu was beside him, he wouldn't be able to recognize that Lu Ming was an imposter. Lu Ming borrowed Ming Lu's identity to sneak into the Imperial Dragon Guards and wait for an opportunity to inquire about Xian Yanqing's whereabouts. Chapter 1094. The next morning, Lu Ming went to the registration area of the Emperor Dragon Guards. When he arrived, he got a shock. There was already a long queue at the registration area. To some people from small factions, the Emperor Dragon Guards was a good job. Joining the Emperor Dragon Guards was equivalent to joining the ancient Saint Dynasty, and they would be able to obtain more cultivation resources. Those below Spirit Embryo Realm leave quickly. We don't need anyone below Spirit Embryo Realm. At the registration area, there were a few burly men wearing purple long robes embroidered with the picture of a flood dragon. They were the Emperor Dragon Guards. Their auras were very strong. Lu Ming swept his gaze across and realized that they were all at the 7th level of Spirit Embryo Realm and above. There was also an elder sitting at the side with his eyes closed. He was also wearing the uniform of the Emperor Dragon Guards, but his aura was unfathomable. However, it couldn't hide from Lu Ming's senses. Lu Ming realized that this person was at the 1st level of Spirit God Realm. Only those above Spirit Embryo Realm can join. The requirement is too high. Let's go. Some people sighed and walked away while shaking their heads. Take out your identification card and report your information. We will verify it. After that, there will be a test. Because there is a limit to the number of Imperial Dragon Guards this time. There are too many people who have signed up. We can't recruit all of them. Only the strong can stay. Okay, the registration starts now, a burly man said. Then they started to register one by one. Lu Ming waited patiently for 2 hours before it was his turn. Lu Ming moved his hand and an identity token appeared. He passed it to an Emperor Dragon Guard. This identity token was taken from Ming Lu. It was the identity token of a disciple of Black Spear Sect. Black Spear Sect, Ming Lu. Lu Ming said. The burly man checked the identity token and registered it. We will send people to verify your identity. If there is any falsehood, we will kill you on the spot. Do you understand? The burly man said with a cold gaze. Yes, I understand. Lu Ming nodded his head repeatedly. And wait over there. There will be a test later, the burly man said. Lu Ming walked to the side and waited patiently. After another 2 hours, the registration ended. There were more than 2,000 people who had registered. All right, come with me. At this moment, the old man at the domain Enlightened Spirit God Realm stood up and spoke indifferently before he walked in with large strides. Lu Ming and the others followed behind him. Soon, they arrived at a military camp. In the middle of the military camp, there was a huge stone tablet. This stone tablet can test your cultivation base. All you need to do is infuse your true qi into the stone tablet, and we will know your cultivation base. There are 2,000 people who signed up this time, but we only need 200 people. Therefore, we will only accept those whose cultivation base is in the top 200. Now the test begins, the old man announced. After that, the applicants went up to take the test one by one. As long as he poured his true qi into the stone steel would light up, and through the light, he would be able to tell his cultivation. Starting the test one by one, Lu Ming discovered that most of them were at the first level of spirit embryo realm. Those at the second level of spirit embryo realm were much lesser, and those at the third level of spirit embryo realm were even lesser. Soon it was Lu Ming's turn. Just in case, I'd better input a bit more Jinyuan. Lu Ming thought to himself. Only 200 people were accepted. To guarantee that nothing would go wrong, Lu Ming planned to input a bit more true qi. Walking to the stone tablet, Lu Ming pressed his hand on the stone tablet and poured his true qi into it. Whoa! The stone tablet shook and 7 silver lights flashed out. Enough! Lu Ming withdrew his true qi. 7 silver lights represented the cultivation of the 7th level of spirit embryo realm. This way there should be nothing wrong, and he would definitely be accepted. 7th level of spirit embryo realm. The eyes of the old man at the spirit god realm lit up. Those who came to sign up were usually people from small forces, and their cultivation base wasn't too high. Those whose cultivation base was too high normally wouldn't join the Imperial Dragon Guards, so there weren't many who could reach the 7th level of spirit embryo realm. Yes, not bad. The old man at the spirit god realm nodded. The test continued. Not long after, all the tests were completed. Lu Ming noticed that there were a total of 3 people who had reached the 7th level of spirit embryo realm, and only 1 person had reached the 8th level of spirit embryo realm. This made Lu Ming rub his nose. Was his performance too outstanding? All right, the test is over. Those who are ranked in the top 200 can stay in the barracks for now. Wait for our news in a few days. The old man at the spirit god realm instructed. Those who weren't ranked in the top 200 could only sigh and leave. As for Lu Ming and the others, they were led to their rooms. For the next few days, Lu Ming stayed in the barracks and cultivated while waiting for news. 3 days later, the news came that Lu Ming had been accepted and officially became a member of the Imperial Dragon Guards. The 4 of you are very good. I've temporarily arranged the position of deputy flag bearer for you. If you perform well in the future, it won't be a problem for you to be promoted. Also, the positions that you need to guard have been arranged. Someone will inform you in a while. After the old man at the spirit god realm finished his announcement, he gave each of them a token that represented a deputy flag bearer. The flag in the Imperial Dragon Guards had the meaning of an official position. A flag had 500 people. The main flag could command 500 Imperial Dragon Guards, and the deputy flag bearers weren't small either. This was because their cultivations were profound. No matter where they were, strength represented everything. Not long after, someone delivered the robes that represented the Imperial Dragon Guards to Lu Ming and also delivered the news of the positions that they needed to guard. Naturally, the 4 deputy flags were separated from each other. The guards of the 8th prince. Lu Ming's gaze moved. His temporary duty was to be the 8th prince's guard. This made Lu Ming's eyes slightly strange, because according to what he knew, wasn't the 8th prince Xia Zhen? Wasn't it Xia Zhen who had gone to 9 Dragon City and taken away Xian Yanqing? What a coincidence! I can inquire about Shao Qing from Xia Zhen. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth rose into a smile. Of the 200 people that had joined together, there were still 30 people that were with Lu Ming. They were all the 8th prince's guards. Not long after, a skinny man in his 40s came and stood in front of Lu Ming and the others. I'm your general. My name is Shi Fang. In the future, you will follow me. Now, follow me to the 8th prince's mansion. The skinny man's gaze swept over them. A especially stopping on Lu Ming's body. A cold light flashed in his eyes. This Shifang seems to be hostile to me, but this is the first time I've seen him. Strange. Lu Ming slightly frowned as he thought to himself. The 8th prince's mansion was very spacious in the inner city. It was like a villa with a radius of 100 miles. The Imperial Dragon Guards couldn't directly enter the 8th prince's mansion. They had to live in a military camp outside the mansion. In the military camp outside the 8th prince's mansion, Lu Ming and the others gathered. Shifang stood on a high platform, looking down at them with a cold expression. I'll tell you some things now. The first thing to do in the Imperial Dragon Guards is to obey orders and protect the safety of the Imperial family with your life. Also, I'll tell you that there are many experts in the Imperial Dragon Guards. Some of you shouldn't be complacent just because you have some strength. There are many experts in the Imperial Dragon Guards who are stronger than you. Any one of them can suppress you. Do you understand? Chapter 1095. Lu Ming frowned. He always felt that Shifang's words were targeted at him. However, he had never seen Shifang before, so why was Shifang always targeting him? Could it be that this Ming Lu had offended Shifang in the past? Lu Ming thought to himself. After Shifang finished speaking, he turned around and left. After that, someone arranged a place for them to stay. Lu Ming was the vice banner and had a small courtyard. There was also another person who stayed in Lu Ming's courtyard to help Lu Ming out. This person was also a newly joined Imperial Dragon Guard and looked to be around 50 years old. He looked rather shrewd and was called Sun Lin. Lord Vice Banner, you have to be careful. Arriving at the courtyard, Sun Lin reminded him. Oh, what do you mean? Lu Ming asked. Lord Vice Banner should be able to feel that when Commander Shi spoke, a lot of his words were actually for you. Sun Lin said. Oh, could it be that you know why? Lu Ming asked. He was also very curious. Lord Vice Banner has just arrived, so you probably don't know the rules of the Imperial Dragon Guard. In the Imperial Dragon Guard, everything is based on strength. Those who are strong can continue to rise as long as they make contributions. Lord Vice Banner, your cultivation is at the 7th level of Spirit Embryo Realm, while Commander Shifang's cultivation is only at the 6th level of Spirit Embryo Realm. Your cultivation is higher than his. Hearing until here, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. What you mean is that Shifang is worried that I will threaten his position. Lord Vice Banner is wise. The reason why Shifang can have the position of commander is because he has an elder brother who is the personal guard of His Highness the 8th Prince. That's why he can become the position of commander, commanding 500 Imperial Dragon Guards. Furthermore, the highest level of people in this banner was only at the 6th level of Spirit Embryo Realm. Therefore, Shifang has a very stable position as the commander. However, Lord Vice Banner's cultivation is higher than his, so as long as Lord Vice Banner makes some contributions, surpassing Shifang or even replacing him would be very normal. Therefore, Shifang naturally wouldn't be nice to Lord Vice Banner and might even do something secretly. Sun Lin explained. Lu Ming smiled. So that's how it was. However, he didn't take it to heart. He could suppress a mere Shifang with a single finger, so there was no need to take it to heart. After chatting for a while, Lu Ming walked into the room and sat down cross-legged, beginning to comprehend the concept of heaven and earth. Previously, in the Saint Mansion's secret realm, Lu Ming had devoured many intent realm runes. Not only had he made a breakthrough in his cultivation, but his intent of heaven and earth had also improved. His thunder concept and wind concept had both broken through to the lower level of the 4th level. Including his fire concept, he now had 3 other concepts that had reached the lower level of the 4th level. Now he was fully focused on comprehending the earth concept and water concept. Nothing much happened in the first 2 days. The Imperial Dragon Guards were usually very idle when they had nothing to do. After all, they were all warriors. They didn't need to patrol like ordinary people. When they had nothing to do, they just needed to cultivate in peace. They would only be mobilized when something happened. On the evening of the third day, Lu Ming heard some movement outside. He ended his cultivation, opened the door, and walked out. There were two people in the courtyard. One was Sun Lin, and the other was a middle-aged man who looked like a skinny monkey. At this moment, Sun Lin took out a storage ring with an ugly expression and handed it to the skinny middle-aged man. The skinny middle-aged man took the storage ring. When he saw Lu Ming, he chuckled and walked over. "You're Ming Lu." "That's right," Lu Ming said. "I was just about to look for you. Since you've joined the Imperial Dragon Guards, Commander Shifeng will take care of you in the future and let you maximize your benefits and live a good life. However, Commander Shifeng can't do it for free. You have to show some appreciation. Do you understand?" The skinny middle-aged man stretched out his hand and pinched his fingers. Lu Ming's lips curled up. He understood that the skinny middle-aged man was sent by Shifeng to collect benefits. Needless to say, every new person who joined would be patronized. How greedy! "Tell me, how much do you want?" Lu Ming said. "You're the deputy commander. The higher your position, the more you have to pay. For the others, 50,000 origin stones. You can give me 200,000 origin stones." The skinny middle-aged man chuckled. 50,000? 200,000? The smile on the corner of Lu Ming's lips became even wider. How ruthless! For a normal person, 50,000 origin stones was definitely a huge burden for a normal spirit embryo, realm martial arts practitioner. Yet for him, the skinny middle-aged man wanted 200,000. This was 200,000 origin stones, and it wasn't a small sum. Even a normal spirit embryo, realm martial artist would find it hard to take it out. It was completely an exorbitant demand. "It's a pity that I don't have so many origin stones. Please return," Lu Ming said indifferently. "You don't have it? Don't try to trick me. You're a martial arts practitioner at the 7th level of spirit embryo realm. How can you not have 200,000 origin stones with all your assets?" The skinny middle-aged man sneered. "Oh, even if I have 200,000 origin stones with all my assets, what will I use to cultivate if I give it all to you?" Lu Ming said. "I don't care about this. This is your problem. If you can't take it out, it's best you get out of the Imperial Dragon Guards. Otherwise, without the protection of Commander, you won't even know how you died." The skinny middle-aged man's face darkened as he threatened. "Haha!" Lu Ming was so angry that he laughed. "If I need Shifeng's protection, how can a martial artist at the 6th level of spirit embryo realm protect me? What a joke! All right, get out of here immediately. Otherwise, I'll throw you out." "Audacious! How dare you mock Commander? You're simply audacious. You're courting death," the skinny middle-aged man shouted. "Scram!" Lu Ming suddenly shouted angrily and took a step forward. A terrifying aura burst forth and pressed down on the skinny middle-aged man. The skinny middle-aged man trembled as if he was struck by lightning. He retreated a few steps back and spat out a mouthful of blood. "You with the surname Ming, just you wait. You're dead meat." The skinny middle-aged man staggered out with a face full of resentment. In a blink of an eye, he had disappeared. "Commander, if you offend him like this, I'm afraid Shifeng will be here soon." "Sigh." Sun Lin sighed and was slightly worried. "He's just a clown. What's there to be afraid of?" Lu Ming said casually. "Shifeng is nothing, but his older brother is the personal guard of the 8th Prince, an expert at the 1st level of the Spirit God realm." Sun Lin spoke while a trace of terror appeared in his eyes. If a Spirit God realm expert wanted to slap them to death, then it would be no different than slapping an ant to death. "Oh," Lu Ming spoke indifferently with a calm expression, and then he casually sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard as if nothing had happened. Sun Lin was filled with worry at the sight. After a short while, bang! The door to the courtyard was blasted open, and then Shifang walked in with a few of his trusted aides with a gloomy expression. Minglu, you injured another Imperial Dragon Guard for no reason or rhyme. I suspect that you have ulterior motives. Kneel down obediently and receive your punishment. Shifang shouted loudly and directly pushed the crime onto Lu Ming. Lu Ming glanced indifferently at Shifang and said, "What an idiot! I'll give you 3 breaths of time to fuck off right now." How audacious! You dared to go against your superior. Your crime is even worse. Your cultivation should be crippled and you're expelled from the Imperial Dragon Guard. Shifang shouted loudly. Haha, Shifang, feel free to give it a try. Chapter 1096. Humph, you still dare to resist? Shifang said solemnly. He didn't believe that Lu Ming would dare to resist. He, Shifang's elder brother, was a strong practitioner at the first level of spirit god and the personal bodyguard of the 8th prince. If Lu Ming dared to make a move on him, he would be courting death. Furthermore, he had learned a rather powerful martial technique from his elder brother, and his innate talent was not bad. Even if Lu Ming's cultivation was 1 level higher than his, he wouldn't be afraid if they really fought. Lu Ming didn't answer Shifang and instead stood up and walked toward Shifang. 3 breaths have passed. Looks like I can only personally throw you out. Audacious, you really dare to make a move on me. Everyone, let's attack together and suppress this person. Shifang shouted angrily, and the aura on his body burst forth as he charged towards Lu Ming. Beside Shifang, the other 3 people also made their move. Their aura burst forth, and they were actually all at the 6th level of spirit embryo realm. These people were the strongest in this banner. Usually, they would follow Shifang's lead. The 4 of them working together wasn't weak, but in Lu Ming's eyes, it was no different from children playing house. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming kicked out. The instant this kick was kicked out, it turned into 4 shadows of legs. Bang! 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 All the attacks of Shifang and the other 3 turned into bubbles and shadows under Lu Ming's legs. The soles of Lu Ming's feet directly imprinted on their faces. For miserable shrieks rang out as Shifang and the other 3 flew out of the courtyard like for cannonballs. Their miserable shrieks rang out in the night sky and became further and further away. No one knew how far they had flown. On the field, there was still that skinny monkey-like middle-aged man who hadn't left. At this moment, his eyeballs were almost popping out and his body was trembling nonstop. His face was pale from fright. He didn't think that Lu Ming would be so daring to even hit Shifang. Most importantly, he did not expect that not only did Lu Ming dare to fight, but his combat strength was also so strong that he sent Shifang and the others flying with a single kick. Even though Lu Ming's cultivation was 1 level higher than Shifang and the other 3, Shifang had 4 people, and yet they didn't even have the slightest bit of resistance. It could be seen that Lu Ming's battle power was much stronger than normal 7th level spirit embryo realm practitioners. At this moment, he looked at Lu Ming in horror. Scram! Lu Ming berated. Yes, I'll leave right now. The middle-aged man turned around and was about to leave. I told you to scram, not leave, Lu Ming said coldly. The skinny middle-aged man's face was pale. Looks like I have to do it myself. Lu Ming's gaze turned cold. No. The skinny middle-aged man was so scared that he almost peed his pants. He could only lie on the ground in humiliation and roll out of the courtyard. Then he got up and ran away. This Deputy Flag Lord, I'm afraid that Shifang will not let this matter rest after offending him like this. Sun Lin was full of worry. He wasn't worried for Lu Ming. He was afraid that he would be implicated by Lu Ming. What are you afraid of? Lu Ming said casually and returned to his room to cultivate. With a wave of his hand, numerous bottles, jars, jade boxes, and metal chests appeared in the room. There were over 100 of them, and they were all obtained from the sacred manor in the sacred manor's secret realm. Lu Ming didn't check them previously, and now was the perfect time to check them out. These are spirit refinement pills. Lu Ming looked at those jade bottles and was elated. Those jade bottles were actually spirit refinement pills. Spirit refinement pills were refined using the spirit refinement fruit as the main ingredient. If one's spirit embryo was perfected and consumed it frequently, it could greatly increase the chances of breaking through to spirit God. If spirit God strong practitioners consumed it, they could condense their spirit God and strengthen their spiritual consciousness. There were over a dozen jade bottles here, and they were all filled with spirit refinement pills. Every jade bottle had 9 pills. There were at least a few hundred spirit refinement pills here. He had struck it rich. Following that, Lu Ming looked at other things. Many of the other things were pills, and they were all very precious pills. Most of them weren't inferior to spirit refinement pills. There were also all kinds of materials that were very precious. Lu Ming couldn't name many of them. Lu Ming kept them one by one. Finally, with a thought, a small fiery red pagoda appeared. Emperor-level spirit weapon. Once the small fiery red pagoda appeared, it trembled slightly as though it was about to leave. However, Lu Ming's vital essence spread out and enveloped the small pagoda. Emperor-level spirit weapon, if I refine it, it will definitely increase my strength. However, it won't be that easy to refine it. Furthermore, with my current cultivation, even if I refine it, I won't be able to unleash much of its power. It's better to refine it properly another day when I'm free. Thinking until here, Lu Ming put away the small pagoda again. He then took out spirit refinement pills and refined them to condense his spirit God. Time slowly passed. Tonight, there was no movement. On the second day, there was also no movement. On the second night, Lu Ming made his move. He asked Dandan to inscribe a formation to restrain his aura. His body was like a ghost as he tore through the void and headed towards the 8th Prince Xiejin's mansion. Lu Ming planned to enter Xiejin's mansion to see if he could find out some information about Xian Yinqing. Of course, the 8th Prince's mansion was guarded by the Imperial Dragon Guards. However, given Lu Ming's current cultivation level and the array formation that Dandan had set up to conceal his aura, the Imperial Dragon Guards could not discover him at all. The 8th Prince's mansion was very big. There were many palaces and pavilions. The area was very wide. Lu Ming spread out his spiritual sense and looked around. After a while, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. His figure moved and appeared above a palace. As his spiritual sense swept out, the situation below the palace was directly imprinted in his mind. It was clearer than seeing with his eyes. This was the wonder of spiritual sense. In a room below the palace, 2 figures were discussing something. One of them was Shi Fang, and the other person was over 50 years old. He had a robust figure and a rather dignified appearance. "Big brother, you must take revenge for me. That new vice flag master was actually so arrogant and even dared to hit me. He clearly didn't give Big brother any face." Shi Fang complained tearfully. This robust man, over 50 years old, was the 8th Prince's personal guard, an expert at the first level of the domain enlightened spirit god realm. However, Lu Ming's current cultivation had attained the 2nd level of the domain enlightened spirit god realm. How formidable was the domain enlightened spirit god realm that he cultivated? His spiritual sense was formidable. So how could it be noticed by his opponent? All right, I understand. This Ming Lu is truly audacious. However, I'm at the domain enlightened spirit god realm and the 8th Prince's personal guard. If I were to make a move against him directly, then I would probably be criticized by others. How about this? I have a method to eliminate him. When he spoke up to hear, Shi Fang's older brother started to send a voice transmission, and Lu Ming was unable to hear the rest of it. Haha, let me see how all of you eliminate me. Lu Ming sneered, and then his figure flashed and left this place to look for the 8th Prince's residence. It wasn't long before Lu Ming finally found the eighth prince in the depths of the estate. The eighth prince really is Xiezhen. After not seeing him for a few years, Xiezhen has matured slightly, and his cultivation has become much stronger as well. At this moment, Xiezhen was sitting high up in a great hall. Below him, a few people were kneeling there, reporting to him about some matters. Bang! Xiezhen suddenly slapped the table heavily and shouted coldly, "What? They failed again? What a bunch of trash!" Eighth prince, even though 16th princess is in the ninth hell, her natural talent is truly too formidable, and the advancement of her cultivation is too terrifying. All the people we sent were killed by her. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.